So many people just got oh my gosh, did Jim just gift 50 memberships? Whoa, that's crazy. Thank you so much, Jim, for giving everybody the chance to become a member. Woo! We have Japanese lessons available on my YouTube page. Teach Tommy is teaching Japanese to everybody, and he does a really good job. So all of you just got gifted memberships to that. Thanks to Jim. What a generous offer. Thank you so much, Jim. Welcome, everyone. Nietzsche, Amy in Sapporo, welcome. Nice to have you here. We have Mr. Landfill, 1057 where you are. It is just after midnight here in Tokyo, Japan. I'm going to be picky about this. It's still a little bit crooked. How's that? We could get a better angle. Look at the lights on that TV. That's pretty cool, right? I just got that maybe a month ago. Making it fancy. Oh, I like this angle. This is a good angle. Hey, now we're ready. Prindes says, I need a membership. All right, now I feel ready. All right, minasan konbanwa, or wherever you are, ohayo gozaimasu, dagahou, that's Cantonese, or 안녕하세요, 여러분, 잘 지내고 있어요, or 잘 지내셨어요, how you doing, namaste. That's a language that I haven't really studied, Hindi. Hello from Nepal. Haven't studied Nepalese either, but we could also say 大家好. So Chinese Mandarin, very similar to Cantonese. 大家好, 大家好 sounds very, very similar. Nice to have you here. Germany is in the chat, and we have a great topic today, something that I'm passionate about talking about, and I hope it will be helpful to you, is busting language learning myths. That is the theme for today's discussion. And why is this important? Because there's a lot of information out on YouTube especially that promotes language learning myths. We're going to be going through those one by one today, explaining exactly what the myth is and busting it. And I hope that you find this to be very helpful, because people, especially on YouTube, they want to oversell whatever their course or program is, and they tend to oversell their methods. One thing, just to be specific about what we're talking about today, one thing I want to go over is the so-called immersion method. And we'll be busting myths about that today too. So I'm sure you've heard a ton about that on YouTube if you're on the language learning side of YouTube. So I'd like to talk about that today and what myths are surrounding it. And we're going to talk about, well, why you have a misunderstanding of what full immersion or immersion learning actually is. And I've heard so many people on YouTube talk with complete confidence, renaming this, basically making this word almost meaningless at this point. And we're going to talk about that today. So hold your horses, folks. Welcome everyone who's entering. We got a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a very productive and interesting discussion, so I hope you stay along for it. It is midnight in Tokyo. As usual, I'm doing this quite late, so give me a little leeway on answering your comments and keeping up with stuff, because it is quite late. I had a long day already today. I had some friends over. We played Mario. We were playing everything, playing lots of games. We played Smash Brothers, and it has been a long day. So I'm drinking water out of the glass I was drinking alcohol out of earlier. Don't worry, that was a while ago. It's time to sober up, and both figuratively and literally, and get some productive conversation going on today. But probably for most of you, it is Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon where you're at. So we're in a different time zone. Surprisingly, even some other YouTubers thought that I lived in America. I don't know why anyone would think that, but to clear it up, hello, my name is Anning. I think most of you know me. You know me by now, but maybe you haven't watched every single video I made. I am from Detroit, Michigan, the Detroit, Michigan area, but I have been living in Asia since 2012, like pretty much consistently that entire time. We are now going on year 13. I spent 6 years living in Japan. Oh, sorry, 6 years in China and now 7 years in Japan. So my time living in Japan as of 2025 will now pass the amount of time I lived in China, which is kind of crazy because they were both quite long. Year 13, baby. All right, welcome, welcome, Ruben. Yeah, thank you, Jim Ross. Ruben C says, thank you, Jim Ross, because he donated 50 memberships. Jim is, I gotta say, he's like one of the biggest contributors and fans, and one of my closest friends that I met through fans on YouTube. Jim has been to my house multiple times. He's taken multiple visits. I've had Jim over for dinner, and actually quite a few like hardcore fans of the channel. I'll have them over here when they're in Tokyo, and maybe you could be the next one. Hey, come eat yakiniku at my house. We can come hang out. You want to play some Smash Brothers over here? I've had YouTubers over and other fans of the channel. Everyone, people I've interviewed. I love becoming friends with people through YouTube. So where there's a will, there's a way. And one of the first places to start is becoming a member of my Discord. And I do have to filter that out a little, because I can't open the floodgates to everyone and then some crazy people on the internet. I hope you understand that. I also am only one person. You might think, oh, this big of a channel must be a team. It's not. It is just me and sometimes my husband, Tommy, but usually just me. And I want to answer the questions in the community. So I privated the Discord to keep it smaller so I can actually get to know people in there. But if you just pay a one-time $3 fee, that's becoming a member on Patreon just one time, you don't have to keep renewing it every month. Then you pass the gate and you get to go in the Discord. So that's how you take the first steps in getting to know me. And then maybe if you're in town one day, we could have dinner at my house. I like to get to know you guys, but I do have to actually talk to you for a little while before we get to that point. I hope you understand. Welcome. We got 11 a.m. in Michigan. I'm from Detroit too. That's awesome. All right. Mike Kuhn, me too. Nice to have you here. Mike David, hello, hello with a heart. Welcome. And since we are talking about language learning, I want to be clear, not everybody really, even other YouTubers, they thought that I was only studying Japanese and Chinese, and that is not true. I have seriously studied, like especially recently, seriously studied 4 different languages. I speak English, obviously, native. I didn't know any foreign languages, honestly, until I was, in my 20s, in my early 20s, when I moved over to Asia. I didn't know any foreign languages. I have a monolingual family. I didn't have any advantages. I learned everything I know as an adult. Hey, what the heck? Don't do that. We're looking over here, not over there. I know. YouTube attention spans. Anyway, technical difficulties. Art Perez is from Texas. Welcome. Nice to have you here. So I studied Chinese first, and that was in 2012. So you do the math there, 13 years of Chinese straight. Japanese, I started in 2015. So we're now at the 10-year anniversary. I think this summer, it'll be 10 years that I've been studying Japanese. So both those are at an advanced level. I can take a job here in Japan or work in China. I went to grad school in both countries. I can write papers. I can handwrite papers. I wrote my thesis all in Chinese, blah, blah, blah. I know you don't care so much about my thesis, but it's something that I had to do to graduate. 70 pages, all in Chinese, of course. And then I was lucky enough to do like a short time program here in Japan through my school in China. They sent me over here. I was a Chinese exchange student in Japan. So Chinese, Japanese, high level. advanced level. I read novels, like blah blah blah. It's been over a decade. I hope. I went what we call full immersion, actual immersion. We'll get to that later. Actual immersion, which is where you almost only use that language in your life, which is pretty much impossible if you're living in America. That would not, full immersion is you drop you off in the country and you speak almost nothing but that language for as long as you're there, 6 months, a year, or in my case, 13 years. And I nearly only speak Japanese and Chinese. And then through work, YouTube, of course, I'm speaking English now, but that's not really a part of my daily life unless I'm seeing friends. All right, so yeah, I speak Chinese and Japanese, but I have been studying Korean for the last 3 years. That is something I put on YouTube in the very beginning, did a couple introductory, like this is my first few months of learning Korean videos, showed you my homestay, but a lot of people didn't see that video. And then I actually did a few videos on the street with Korean, but not a lot in the very beginning. I have not made any videos in Korean in 2 years. Even though I have gone from being beginner in Korean up to intermediate, beyond conversational. My goal this year is to go from just intermediate to upper intermediate and start getting into advanced stuff. But recently I transferred schools. So I have a lot to say today about the language myths, right? So I did what on YouTube is called the immersion method, which is not the true immersion method. For the last 6 months, I did an experiment, just not taking classes, but doing podcast reading and listening exclusively in Korean. And after this 6-month experiment that I've just done on myself, I can honestly say my speaking skills in Korean, it just absolutely plummeted in those 6 months. It's not to say I didn't learn new vocabulary. It's not to say that I wasn't working hard, but the absence of actual real life conversation, I'm listening to TV, I'm listening to cartoons, I'm listening to podcasts like Dee Dee's podcast or All Things Korean, although all these obscure Korean podcasts on a daily basis. And just maybe a week ago, I went to a party with a Korean friend of mine and talked to her mother, and I just bombed it. Granted, I did drink a little, but I totally bombed the conversation. I could not believe how much ability I had lost in speaking, or how rusty, let's just call it rusty, how rusty I got in those 6 months. So I have a lot to share about that experiment. And in the end, because I'm having difficulty finding Korean people to talk to here in Japan that are not already really good at Japanese, so we don't end up speaking Korean, I need to go back to the school and at least pay for someone to talk to me in Korean so I don't get that rusty again. That was bad. I felt like I went back 2 years in speaking ability, just feeling, maybe it's all there still, but it was really rusty. And we have Marissa here. Hello, Anming. Greetings from San Antonio, Texas. All right, so I just wanted to spiel saying, all right, I have done Chinese, Japanese to a high level. That's Mandarin Chinese. 3 years of Korean now. And once I get back into the school and brush that rust off a little from the last 6 months, I really want to do a lot more videos in Korean because I've come a long way, and especially listening ability and vocabulary, things like that. I have been learning Cantonese for the last year. Haven't done a lot of videos in Cantonese in a while, but I have definitely been progressing at a rate that's faster than I should be progressing. Only in the last 2 months did my teacher beat me, metaphorically beat me up, and said I need to put more hours into this. The amount of time I was doing was maybe 15 hours a month at most, and it was just, I made progress, but it was purely because of my ability with Mandarin that was pushing me along with Cantonese. But now I've doubled it, tripled it. I'm doing at least 30 hours a month now. My goal is to move it up to 60 60 would be 2 hours a day. And, even if I meet 80% of that, that would be fine. So why am I telling you all that? Because a lot of people think that I only know Chinese, Mandarin Chinese and Japanese, and that is not true. I've been learning Korean for the last 3 years very diligently. So diligently, my YouTube videos took a big hit because I didn't have time to make them. And then I've been learning Cantonese for a year, and I can't wait to show you more of that, especially the Cantonese, which is not rusty. The Korean's a little rusty right now, but I go back to this school next week, so that won't take long to get back into it. We have Madison. Nice to have you here. Do you know Aki and Joey? No, I don't, but I know people that know them. No, I don't know them. They've never reached out, but why would they? I mean, we don't really have close mutual friends. Greetings from Chicago, Ron. Welcome, Midwest USA. Michael said, which is your favorite language to speak? I think it's always your first love. Mandarin is my favorite language to speak. I like the emotions in it. I like the pronunciation. I like being a character. With any language that you're speaking, you kind of change personalities a little when you go from English to the other language. You take on a little bit of a different personality, different tone of voice, and I really think that Mandarin is cool, and I like taking on that different personality. I challenge you to learn Vietnamese. I already said that I am going to learn Vietnamese for crying out loud. It takes time, folks, and my plate is already overloaded, absolutely overloaded. Do you want to be the jack of all trades and master of none? Or can I just get good enough at Korean that it can start to match my Chinese and Japanese ability? You keep piling it on like this is some sort of rat race, and it's getting silly. I spend 100 hours a month learning languages. It's more than my job doing YouTube videos, and I feel like it's kind of ridiculous already. It's already gotten to the point of being a bit too much. But next year I will start. I learned a little Vietnamese, but I will start at a school next year. Give me some time to actually get more confidence in Korean. Like, I don't want to be that person on YouTube. In fact, you may have noticed I really changed my content more this year to get away from the language stuff in general, because I feel like it's getting toxic. The rat race of a little bit here, a little bit there, pretending to know a lot of languages, but only knowing scripts. So many people are doing this. I want to get away from that. I want to disassociate. I don't want to be a part of that, at least. I think it's a bit deceptive. And I've always felt that way, and I've always said that on my channel. So please stop telling me to do this, do that language. I know where I want to be. I know what my goals are. And it takes a very long time, folks. Especially, I am now doing Korean and Cantonese at the same time, which you can do 2 languages at the same time if you have a good base in one. So I learned Korean for 2 years before I took on Cantonese, and it's already a bit too much because I don't live in Korea and I don't live in Hong Kong, so I don't have the opportunity to use as much. Hey, Mr. Cord, so nice to see you live. Love your channel. Thank you. DB, been loving your docu videos. Yeah, I've been enjoying those, but it's a hard push on this audience. It's a hard sell. So I've kind of like been getting new people into the channel. But I think at this point, I've been on YouTube for 5 years, so I need to try different things and diversify. And also, I love going in depth. I know you don't think those videos use language skills, but where do you think I get all that information about those places? I watch tons of Japanese YouTubers go all over this country, and I listen to their videos and research the places, and that's why I know all that information about it. So there is a lot of language that goes into it. Even if I'm not directly speaking Japanese in most of the video, you know, all that information I'm relaying to you is just translated back from what I read in Japanese, and I'm translating it to you in English. But, you know, just enjoy it. You don't have to know the details. Ninja Monkey, nice to have you here, Nathan. Welcome. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me last time. Nathan's coming back soon. He's missing the best of the cherry blossoms, and so are you. It's beautiful out there right now. Gorgeous. Best time to visit Japan. Absolute best time. Bamba 1990, great year. Hello, everyone. Nice to have you here. We have a question. Do you use a language so much that you forget how to speak English? No, because only with certain words. Only certain words that I only learned in the foreign language, especially names of foods. There's no real English translation. Then I can get a little bit tripped up on explaining what some of these foods are. How do you say malatang in English? Spicy Chinese soup? I don't know. There's a lot of spicy soups. Things like that. Rare foods. I just had a type of noodle the other day in Japan that harusame noodles. How do I explain harusame in English? There's no word. Harusame. The kanji's really weird too. And it's weird because of the yomikata. Harusame. Yeah, it's like, normally this would be, haru or shun, haru, and then ame, but harusame in this context. How do you explain what that is in English? If my mom's coming to Japan next month, everybody, we'll do a live stream with her. How am I going to explain to my mom when she asks me, what are these noodles? They're harusame. What is harusame? Clear rice noodles, but there's lots of clear rice noodles in Japan. So yeah, not really. I can't say certain words in English. There's no translation. Ed says, thank you for your videos from Tennessee. Hey, sending you good vibes to Tennessee. Yonggang Hao said, 厉害. All right, 谢谢。你觉得什么厉害呢？ All right, I'll give you guys a nice little hello. 我不知道现在有几个中国人在看我的直播，但是我要向大家说，你好，欢迎来到看看我的直播。我非常高兴看到你们。其实我看不到你们，你看得到我，我看不到你们，没关系，继续下去。All right, how about a Cantonese greeting? It's a little harder because there's so many things that I can't say properly in Cantonese, but I can try. 大家好. After 大家好, how's everybody doing? 大家好, 早晨, 你而家喺邊度啊? 我喺日本東京, 你有冇嚟過日本? 而家有冇香港人在睇我嘅 live stream? 有香港人啊，如果有香港人就 give me a message in the DMs. Dumpster Cheese said, oh, thanks for the $20 super chat. Oh my gosh. My father was wrongfully interned in Hawaii for being Korean and speaking Japanese. I'm learning native Hawaiian to allow immersion to continue. Oh, wow. Native Hawaiian. I give you a lot of credit. I did not realize how lucky I was with Chinese and Japanese and even Korean, with how much material there is. Tons. You have the world at your fingertips with those languages. There's so much material. When I dipped my toes into Vietnamese, like I said, folks, we're going to get to Vietnamese next year. I got my hands full. But it is the goal of this channel for me to become fluent in Vietnamese. We'll make that our 2026 goal because it's a little overwhelming right now. But anyway, when I start dipping my fingers into Vietnamese, I realize just how little material there is compared to Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. It is not a fraction of the amount of material out there. And same with Cantonese, a lot fewer resources. So count yourself lucky if you're learning Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, I mean Mandarin Chinese, because you have a lot of resources. So no excuses. You got everything working for you now. You have tons. And try finding material for native Hawaiian. That's going to be even harder than Cantonese. Good luck with that. I'm dang lucky I live in a city where I can even find a Cantonese teacher. He's more like a Cantonese language partner. I'm basically paying him to talk to me 2 hours a week. And it helps. It helps a lot. Because like I told you, I just tried this experiment with Korean. I usually only stay at the language school for 2 years. So I figured with Korean, I've been here for 2 years, maybe it's time to move on. And for 6 months, I didn't have a teacher, and I just feel my speaking abilities getting very rusty. So I would like to go back to the school and, if nothing else, just pay someone to talk to me. And I do have the resources to do that. It's a lot easier than going out on your own and trying to get people to agree to talk to you on their time for free. So sometimes easier just to pay someone. All right. But let's get to today's topic. That's why you're here, right? Or maybe you're just here to say hi. Either way, we're getting into today's topic. That is busting language myths. And I want to get to number 1. Hey, Flourishing Flow, nice to have you. We got Jim Ross. Jim Ross says hi to Ninja Monkey. How's the native Gibraltarian coming? You may have seen Nathan. He's a native Spanish speaker. He was in one of my videos in a Latin town here in Japan. He translated. Very good friend of mine. And so is Jim. Hi, lady. Hug the hubby for us. He's upstairs. He was playing Super Mario Sunshine, trying to 100% it. We're completionists, so we try to complete all the games, and it just, there's some levels in there that's just too frustrating. Konbanwa, Tomi. Tomi, we have another Tomi. Is that my Tomi? Is that Tomi? Is that Tomi? Is that you? We have a Tomi in the chat. Anyway, busting language myths. I have a lot to talk about, and this video is inspired by a video I saw on Language Jones's channel that was so well done, and I couldn't agree with him more. Number 1, lots of videos on YouTube that go popular, that become popular on the language learning side, is because it's telling people what they want to hear. It's just like the fitness industry. And I appreciate YouTubers, like even small YouTubers. Someone recently called Evil Dia made a lot of videos about the stuff going on in the language learning community, specifically calling on YouTubers that do this kinds of stuff. And he's in a much better position to call out people by name than I am, because this is not his job. And he is a little bit insulated as a smaller channel. No, he's a lot insulated. Putting that out as a big channel is a very different thing. I know a lot of smaller channels like to talk about how they never delete comments. Well, you don't get 10,000 hate comments, so it's pretty easy to not delete anything when you're not getting bombarded with it. And that's a numbers game, right? But anyway, I appreciate that him and other YouTubers are calling people out specifically by name, and they can handle the drama, and they're not going to get bombarded with thousands of comments and people trying to find where they live, things like that. And yes, it does go that far. Yes, it does go that far. It gets really nasty. But the first thing that came up on my list for busting language learning myths is people who make titles saying learning Japanese is easy. I'm sure you've seen lots of those videos. And the reason I believe that those are very popular is just like telling people this is my exercise for getting abs. It's telling you exactly what you want to hear. It's telling you exactly what you want to hear. Spot reduction on fat, or you can get abs by doing these crunches, things like that. Of course, that's what people want to hear. Of course, you wish that was true. Language learning is easy. Well, we don't want people to get scared to start languages, right? So perhaps you might think, well, telling them language learning is easy is motivating, right? Just anyone can start. Hey, start today. It's easy. Just do this one thing and repeat it over and over again. But number one, it is not that simple. And my 6-week experiment with Korean should be, it was enough to convince me because I actually freaking did it, that doing one thing or two things over and over again is simply not enough. I exclusively listened to podcasts in Korean for 6 months straight and memorized words, basically doing Anki, taking phrases, taking words, vocabulary, and studying pretty diligently. And I got almost no speaking practice. And that really, really hurt me. So it's not just repeat this one thing over and over again. It's a lot more than that. Actually telling people that language learning is easy demotivates them. It's demotivating. Why? How could that be demotivating, right? It's easy, so anyone can start. It's demotivating because people don't have a lot of patience. You tell someone it's easy, just do this. They assume it's easy, so I'll just do this. They'll do that for about 2 weeks and they quit when they realize, well, damn, this is not that easy. So it doesn't benefit people to tell them what they want to hear. It does not benefit people to tell them something that's very hard, very multifaceted. Playing on different skills like learning Japanese is easy. And just repeat this for years. Just do this thing again, listen to podcasts again, memorize words again, even just sentence mining. If you don't have real world conversations, you're not developing your speaking skills. So it's a lot more than just simply do this, repeat, do this, repeat. It's a multifaceted task that takes years and multiple skills, reading, writing, listening, speaking, to develop. So it's not benefiting you. I know you want to hear, as the viewer, I know you want to hear that it's easy, but it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. And it's not just as simple as do this, repeat, do this, repeat, do this, repeat. It's absolutely not. Or just do this in your room alone, in a vacuum, in a box that you can do by yourself. If you do that, you will not get real world conversations. And that's really important, not just in practicing your speaking skills, but even with vocabulary. There's so many things that you can read or learn through Anki or even hear in a TV show that aren't going to be applicable when you try to use them in conversation. So here's a simple one. In Chinese, they have the word 罕见, and that never was written as a formal word when I studied it. It didn't indicate that it was formal in any dictionary or any textbook I ever used. When I went to say 罕见 to one of my colleagues, 哇，这是个比较罕见的单词. She looked at me like, wow, that's an incredibly formal word. 这是个比较罕见的单词. Of course she understood, but using that kind of word is so like strange in conversation. I didn't know, and you'll only know by using these in real life to get the context of it. The proper word would be 少见，这是个比较少见的单词. The opposite being 常见，少见，常见. These are things that I had to work out over lots of talking and lots of interaction with actual people. I couldn't be in a vacuum in my room by myself to do this. And not only that, above and beyond that, being in a vacuum by yourself and learning everything alone is freaking depressing, you guys. You want to be miserable. You want to be absolutely miserable and isolate yourself from the rest of the world because you're in America and you're trying to learn Japanese. That's just a recipe for being really depressed. I did have to isolate myself a bit in China, not talking to native English speakers, but I always had Chinese people to talk to. So I wasn't in a vacuum by myself. There is a point where you do have to cut out, I can't go to the bar with a bunch of English speakers because I'm trying to learn Chinese. But being by myself the whole time, I only did that for about 3 months and it was absolutely miserable. It's just, how could you not get depressed doing that? It's gonna make it, I had to do that for a test. I was studying for HSK level 6, which at that time HSK level 6 was the highest. It's equivalent to N1 in Japanese. I had to just hardcore study for that test, and it was the most miserable 3 months. I wanted to tear my hair out. Super depressing, boring, and sucked all the fun out of language learning. So I don't recommend that you learn in a vacuum, but it's multifaceted. And just doing one thing over and over again. I'm just going to watch anime in my room. I'm just going to memorize Anki cards or just do sentence mining, repeat. It's not that easy. It's just simply not that easy. And I've seen a lot of people use those methods exclusively, and they did not develop their language speaking skills, because that's an entirely different skill. And it's also very depressing. And that method, by the way, usually appeals to men in IT who are already loners. I don't see many women taking on that method. Women are more social, by the way. I think you know that. Women like to make friends and get chatty. That appeals to a very small group of chronically online. I mean, I'm chronically online too. I'm not insulting them for being online a lot, but that appeals to a very small segment of the people that actually want to learn Japanese, the ones who were already kind of the quiet type. It's not a good method. It's not a good method for many ways, and just repeat. All right, so that's the first myth. The language learning is easy. Just do this, repeat. It's a multifaceted endeavor, and it includes multiple skills you have to develop. We have a long Chinese message. All right, let's see. 你好，我是中国人，同时也在学习日语和英语，对其他亚洲国家的文法也非常兴趣。Hold on. 所以你的视频对我而言就像一个宝藏。非常感谢您制作这些关于语言和文化的高质量视频。Oh, that was so nice of you. Okay, so he says, "Hello, I'm Chinese. At the same time, I'm studying Japanese and English at the same time. I'm interested in other Eastern Asian countries' culture, and so your videos about English are like a treasure chest for me, or your videos are like a treasure chest, according to me. Thank you so much for making these videos about language and culture. They are high quality videos. Thank you." That was a good translation, by the way, too. I had to do a lot of translating, especially writing my thesis, because I would read a lot of material in English and then even Japanese and then translate it into Chinese. So I got quite used to doing that. How's the Japanese economy? It's looking good, but could drop. I wouldn't say it's doing good. I wouldn't say the Japanese economy is doing good right now. The yen is down, but maybe that's good for exports. Things are getting more expensive here. There's a lot of inflation. But, you know, it's making everything cheaper for me because I have US dollars here. So I'm not complaining. Tommy's crying. Tommy's not happy about that. How similar are the meanings of Japanese kanji and Chinese Mandarin Cantonese characters? Very, very similar. Very, very similar. I mean, even right here, our friend up here said, 我是中国人. So, you know, the 中国人, that part, 中国人, that's the same in Japanese. And even the 同时, it's doji, dojini, like at the same time, 同时 in Chinese, dojini in Japanese. And then, yeah, there's a lot of overlap, which makes it easier to study. I have a request. Please make a playlist on YouTube for students who want to go abroad, tourists and international workers abroad, like Japan, to visit the USA and China. Okay. Well, if there's a demand, I'll make what you guys like to see. I have to balance that. I know people love to write in the comment section, just make whatever you want. It's your channel. It's simply not that simple. I do try to balance making what I like and what I'm passionate about. You can see the passion I have for these topics in these videos, but I do have to think about what the audience wants as well as what I want to make, because this is my job and this is my business, and also I need to pay the bills. So we can't just go wild and free like cooking videos and whatever. I do have to balance it out between what you want to see and what I want to make and find a happy medium. And so far we've been partially, I mean, doing that, but not producing enough. I really want to do a video every week, but sometimes you're just trapped on this YouTube hamster wheel. And yeah, being on the hamster wheel where you're running and running and not really going anywhere. So I can make videos, but it's not always worth the time. And you guys don't understand sometimes how much money those videos cost and how much time they take to make. And that is time I would like to be studying languages with. So if I do a video that I'm not that passionate about and it really flops, I really don't like that, because I feel like, oh, I could have used those 50 hours that I spent all week making this. I could have been studying the languages I love to learn. So it's a trade-off. Recovery Anonymous says, after learning Nihongo, which is easier to learn, Korean or Chinese, the kanji aspect I imagine is easier, but I've heard Korean has similar grammar. Back in the day, around before the time of the Korean War, Korea also used characters, hanja, as they're called, and it was equally as difficult as Japanese. They were at the same level because they have a hierarchy, they have formal language, they have their own alphabet with kanji mixed in, and they're different yomikata, different readings. So not that long after the Korean War, Korea phased out characters and now almost completely phased them out. And that took so much difficulty out of the language that Chinese is now harder than Korean. You can read Korean pretty fast. You might not know what it means, but that takes a lot of the difficulty away. So grammar-wise, Korean is still harder, but in general, it's easier than Chinese now that they don't use characters in Korean anymore. They don't use Chinese characters. They have an alphabet, and the alphabet's very logical and very easy to learn. People have bragged that they learned the alphabet and learned how to read on their way to Korea, which might be, they're either they're smarter than me, or they might be kind of like laying it on thick, but you can learn it in just a couple of days if you really work hard. Son RT, Snort said, oh, Snort became a member. Hey, welcome to the family. Nice to have you here. I'm so happy to have you here. Snort, welcome. You became a member. All right. Nice to see her live. Hey, nice to see you live. Nice to see you in the chat, everybody. Since you're here, it means a lot to me. All right, staying on track. I accidentally gifted myself a membership. Well, you gave yourself a present today. All right, next one. We're going through the language learning myths. The first one I went through is language learning is easy. Just repeat, copy, paste, do this, and do it over a long enough period of time, you'll get it. And that's not, I don't think that's benefiting people, because people have very short attention spans. They give up on things very fast. People give up on things, especially things that are hard, very fast. You tell them language learning is easy, they do it for 2 weeks, find out it's not actually easy, and they're very likely to give up or get bored, get frustrated, and drop the thing entirely, which is sad. So I don't like the videos that tell people language learning is easy, especially a language like Japanese, which is the hardest, the most time-consuming language for a native speaker of English. And it's just simply silly to say it's easy, or it's easy but it takes a while. It's not easy, and it's not a copy-paste, do this, do this, do this. Lots of different skills there. And doesn't mean it's not possible, but I don't think it's benefiting anyone to say it's easy. Number 2, you can learn a language like a child does. This is a myth, folks. You're not a child. Your brain does not have the neuroplasticity that a child does. You are a fully developed human being, or as we say, you're a grown-ass man. You are fully developed. You are not going to learn a language like a child does. I also think it's very deceptive for YouTubers. Okay, let's be specific. Very deceptive for methods like the AJAC, if you've ever heard of that, promoted by Matt versus Japan, promoted by Trenton, the kind of obscure channels. But if you've heard this in general, also not that I disagree with every point. It's funny, there's a lot of overlap there with how I've studied and how those guys studied. But there is one point that they really love to drill in that is absolutely not true, that you can study like a child. Just put yourself in front of a TV, just consume media all the time. You don't even have to listen, half listen. First of all, that is not how children learn a language. Children are around their parents, native speakers 24/7. If you just put a child in front of a TV, it's neglect, by the way. Don't just put a child in front of a TV, but it developmentally delays them when they don't have human interaction and attention. We are social creatures. Our brains are wired to be social. We have thousands of years of human evolution and history where we didn't have TVs, and we communicated with each other using our facial features, using our gestures, using our voice, our intonation. This is what we are wired for. The worst thing you can do to someone, the worst punishment, is putting someone in solitary confinement. We'll take the most antisocial human beings on this earth, prisoners, murderers, put them in solitary confinement. They go crazy because we are not meant to be alone. We're meant to be social. So that is not how a child learns, simply by listening, or being put in front of a TV or being put in front of a radio, whatever. We also are not children. First of all, that's not how a child learns. Second of all, we're not children. We don't have the neuroplasticity of children. But let's be honest, it's not so bad to be an adult studying languages and studying as an adult studies languages, because you can learn Japanese and pass N1 in 3 years. But as a child, immersed in Japanese completely with native parents for 3 years, at the end of it, you're going to sound like a 3-year-old. So adults actually have a lot of advantages with language learning, and so do children. But we can focus, and we can sit, and we can study. So to say, this is our method, this is how we learn like children, is absolute BS. It's silly, but they say it with so much confidence. I'm telling you, dude, that is not how children learn, and that we are also not children. Okay, so that's very silly. Number 3, this is not a myth that I've heard on YouTube a lot, but this is a myth that I think a lot of people tell themselves. Maybe they're using it as an excuse too. You can't learn fast as an adult, or it's really hard to learn languages as an adult. Almost impossible. The older you get, the more unlikely it is, or the more impossible it becomes. My mother believed that, and that's why I think she quit Japanese. I didn't want her to quit, but I couldn't stop her. Our beard said, have you tried Hawaiian? I spent Spanish. You did Spanish, found it helpful to read Hawaiian words, sort of. No, I haven't tried Hawaiian, but I've heard it, and it sounded so similar to Japanese. It was kind of cool. All right, so I haven't heard myth number 3. You can't learn as fast as an adult, as a child. I haven't heard YouTubers say this one, but I hear a lot of people in the comments section putting themselves down, saying, I'm too old to learn a language. Take myself as an example. I started learning after the age of 20. We'll say at the age of 20, around 20. Everything I learned was as an adult. And I got proficient in Chinese in just 3 years. Whereas if I were a Chinese child, from birth to 3 years old, I come out speaking like a 3-year-old, right? But you ask a 3-year-old, what does 国际关系 mean? Ask a 3-year-old, what does 霸权主义 mean? Do you guys know what 霸权主义? 现在有中国人在看吗？有中国人在看这个直播吗？我要问你一下，你知不知道霸权主义是什么意思？霸权主义。 不知道的话就查一下词典，就会知道，这是专用语，是国际关系的一个词儿。All right. What is that in English too? There's actually some words that I learned through my major that were political words that I didn't know in English. So is that hegemony? Hegemony, 霸权主义. You ask a 3-year-old that, they're not gonna know. But after 3 years of Chinese, I did know what 经济, economics meant. I knew what 国际关系 meant, international relations. A 3-year-old's not going to know that. So give yourself some credit as an adult, folks. You can sit down and study these really hard words and keep it and put it in the context of the English you already know. So children, you have to explain these entire concepts to them. They don't know what 国际政治 is, international politics, but I bet you do. So you're simply just taking the English word, international politics, matching it to the new word in your new language. And you already know the concept, you memorize it really fast. So give yourself some credit in knowing that adults have a lot of advantages too. And I taught children, and sometimes it's really hard to teach children foreign languages because they do not want to, and the parents want them to, but they don't want to, and they don't sit, and they don't do very well. They really don't. Okay. I don't want to derail you, but are you sure your mic is used? Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. If it's not, then that mic is not bad, but I thought that I set it up. But I don't know. Folks, at this point, we're watching for the information. Okay. Oh, Think Before You Sleep is here. Hey, he's coming to Japan soon for a visit. I've always felt like the child learning language thing is a cope. Adults can learn things way faster than children. Children just have more time. Yeah, they do. They also have more time. You are more likely as a child, because of the neuroplasticity in the brain, to get the accent down better. Even if you don't have a great vocabulary as a child, I've met a lot of kikoku shijo. Kikoku shijo are people that were Japanese born abroad and then came back to Japan. They don't have as much English vocabulary as I do, but they spoke English with a perfect accent. So that's a lot harder to achieve as an adult, getting a perfect accent. And kids learn that rather flawlessly. And the reason for that is, again, going back into neuroscience. When you're an adult learning another language, that's usually filtered through your native language and the sounds you're used to, and the sounds that you can replicate, muscle memory, things like that. That's a lot harder to get the accent really native sounding as an adult. But with a lot of work and training, you can get pretty darn close. All right. Microphone is perfect. Thank you, John. Makes me feel better. All right. Number 4. This is something that I think is important. And this was brought up in Language Jones's video that kind of inspired me to make today's live stream. So shout out to him. Full immersion. This term is tossed out a lot. Full immersion or immersion method is tossed out so much and has gone so far away from the actual meaning of full immersion that it's almost meaningless now. You'll hear a lot of YouTubers oversell their methods, especially with this keyword immersion method. What they actually mean to say is, I just read a lot of books and listen to a lot of podcasts or watch a lot of TV. And that is in language learning known as watching a lot of TV and reading a lot of books. That is not immersion. That is not immersion. That's not the full immersion method in linguistics. I'm a big proponent of full immersion. You should know that. Is that not obvious by my lifestyle? But a lot of people don't know what full immersion actually is. Full immersion is not, I just watch a lot of movies and listen to a lot of podcasts. Great that you do that. I do too, for Korean and Cantonese. That's not full immersion. Full immersion is getting dropped off in another country where you almost exclusively use that language and nothing else. That is full immersion. In linguistics, that is full immersion. I don't do that with Korean and Cantonese, obviously, because I live here in Japan. But what YouTubers sell that word for selling their methods, it's become completely meaningless. They've completely redefined it from what full immersion actually is. Full immersion is very, very hard because you basically drop everything you're doing now and go study that language in that culture 24/7. Very hard for people to do. I can't do that now. I'm living in Japan. Like, I have a husband here. I can't go to Korea. Can't go to Hong Kong and spend even 6 months there. I couldn't do it. And most of you're not going to quit your job. But that is the fastest way to learn. Full immersion, 100% every day. We have to speak that language. No outs, like no, especially if you have no English speakers around you, even better. Yeah, JKR said full immersion is when you have no other choice but to use that language. And that means on a daily basis, right? So in your everyday life, you could really screw it up. For example, people come to Japan and they're in Japan, but they're not really in Japan. You know what I mean? They are in an English-speaking environment in Japan. So earlier today was a rare day for me. Earlier today, I had 2 American friends over, and now I'm talking to you. And I used English all day. That's a rare day for me. There's some people that live like that every day here in Japan, and it's a bubble. So that's not full immersion. That's how you screw that up. But ideally, what full immersion is, and it is very hard for people to do, is you're just in that culture, in that language every day. Perhaps if you were learning Spanish and you're just in a certain part of America where they speak Spanish all day, you use it for your job. Maybe your wife is Mexican. You might be in a full immersion environment. But the good thing is, folks, you don't have to do full immersion to get fluent in a language and progress. It's just probably the fastest method, but one of the hardest. And you have to do it right too. You have to really commit yourself to, all right, I'm going to exclusively use this language for everything, including your job, just, all your waking hours pretty much. And that's not going to be possible if you actually work a job or you go to school in the real world, right, in America. But yeah, full immersion method, that's what I've been doing for years. I'm crazy, man. I quit my job and I went to the other side of the world to do this. I don't expect a lot of people to be able to do that. And it's not the only method, but it's not the only way to get fluent, but that is full immersion. Okay. It's not, I listen to a lot of podcasts every day. You have a job, right? You're not using Japanese at your job. You're getting English most of the day or even half of the day. So it's not full immersion. So stop redefining the word, you guys, making it completely meaningless. I'm talking to YouTubers. Stop. Just sell it for what it is. Just say, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of books. That's not immersion. It's not full immersion. Okay. Whatever. That was myth number 4. A lot of people don't understand what full immersion is. And I love the full immersion classroom, by the way. And that's one thing that a lot of schools are missing out on, especially high schools in America. They're teaching Spanish in English. No, you teach Spanish in Spanish. You don't give any of those students a chance to use English while you're in the classroom. It's Spanish only. And that's always how my tutors and classes have been. I don't want them to use English to explain Cantonese grammar to me. That's not full immersion, even in the classroom, even temporary full immersion. I want to speed things up. Use the target language only. Think Before You Sleep said, I think also the accent issue is not just that natives will use their accent in their target language, but also because adults are more stubborn to learn, like children with less attachment to old habits. Yeah, children don't care about making mistakes. Think of when you were a kid, or if you have small kids, how funny they sound. Like, it's just cute. They'll say world, they'll say it like weld, or, you know how kids talk. They don't talk properly. They add S's to things that don't need S's. I read a book, I read it. They just say the cutest things. And parents are constantly correcting them, and they don't get offended, but because they're kids and they're used to being corrected constantly. But adults don't like that so much. And adults are afraid to make mistakes, and adults are afraid to sound cutesy or stupid. They feel like they sound stupid. So that's one thing that holds adults back big time. And they don't have a native speaker, their parents, around them 24 hours a day to correct them on everything they said wrong. So big difference there. All right, number 5. You don't need grammar. Skip the grammar. You can learn just through memorizing mass amounts of vocabulary or watching things. Skip the books, skip the grammar books, skip learning grammar entirely. What I think that this confuses learning grammar with is the kind of textbook drills that they do in high school classes. And I'm not a fan of high school language learning in America. I think Europe does it very well. There's, you get Finnish kids or Swedish kids that come out with really fluent English at the end of their time in high school. America doesn't come out with that kind of record with its language learning in high school, but we also don't usually do the full immersion. We're only speaking the target language in the classroom, as Europeans do. You can look at even countries like the Philippines, excellent English education, and they do come out fluent in English even in their high school. But I think we confuse learning grammar with learning grammar drills and just covering that. Especially the worst type is in Japan, for example, and in China and in Korea, the teacher uses Japanese or Korean to explain English. And the kids get like 95% Japanese out of the class and 5% English. That is what you're confusing it with. No, you should have some understanding of grammar. I'm not talking about doing grammar drills, but the best way to learn grammar is when it has a relationship with actual conversation, where you're learning the grammar point and using it in a dialogue, or trying to make example sentences with your teacher, your language exchange partner, or learning it in a book or in some sort of audio recording and then trying to use it on the street, see if you use it right, or listening for it in conversation. That's the more effective way to learn grammar, when you have a real relationship to actual conversation with that grammar point. But oftentimes, unfortunately, the way they teach it in schools, especially high schools or Japanese schools teaching English, they don't let it leave the classroom, and they explain everything in Japanese. はい、これの、はい、今日の文法ポイントは、read と read、英語の過去形です。はい、じゃあ、このリストの動詞を全部過去形に変更してください。過去形に書いてください。はい、どうぞ。はい、じゃあ次の〇〇さん、はい、どうぞ。〇〇さん、どうぞ。That's kind of like how the Japanese English classes are taught. And, they'll use like 2 English words per sentence at most, maybe not even. Jimmy Flair said, LOL. Victor, welcome. Hello, Alyssa. Well, hello. We have a member. Conversation, Leth said, conversation is what is important. You can know all kinds of vocabulary, but it doesn't help if you can't speak and also understand conversational language. Exactly. There's also vocabulary retrieval from your memory, taking things from your like more long-term memory or your less active vocabulary, putting things into your active memory is what I'm trying to say, like fast recall. There's lots of words floating around in my Korean brain right now. And I remember 2 weeks ago, like I just told you, I really bombed it at a party speaking Korean, so much so that I'm like, all right, I got to get back into the school. I need a language partner again. I need to start speaking again because I bombed it so bad. And what happened was, like, when we think we get rusty, all those words I had in my, in the front of my brain, they kind of went into the back. I can understand them, People can talk to me. I know what they're saying. I couldn't retrieve it very fast because it's just been too long. So that's the issue with not speaking. You want things in your active memory. Think Before You Sleep said, this lesson is triggering me, reminds me of Spanish class in high school. Oh yeah, that's kind of like my Spanish class too, except at least by year 2 of Spanish, they told us no English in the class, but we were all speaking English to like each other in the classroom, talking to other classmates. That's a hard part about learning with a whole bunch of people that are also native speakers of English. The best classroom I had was when I was in with my classmates, Russians, Koreans. We had nobody but me that spoke English, so I had no outside, no one to talk to. And if I wanted to explain something, it had to be in Chinese, or in Japan, had to be in Japanese, because nobody spoke English. And yeah, that'll do it. Keep doing that for a while. You have no outs. You've got to use the language. All right. So number 6. This one comes up in the YouTube comments section a lot. I haven't heard other YouTubers talk about it, but it's something a lot of people believe. You need talent. You're so talented. You have a talent for languages. I hear that not only from English speakers, I hear it from Chinese people. They'll say, 哇，你真的有语言天赋哦，你怎么这么厉害? They'll say, you have a talent for languages, or whatever. You hear it from everyone around the world thinks this. They think this, but it's not true. Yeah, there are people that have a knack for languages, but that doesn't mean you need talent to be able to get fluent in a language. It certainly helps, and people are more likely to succeed if you already know another foreign language, even a totally non-related one. If I know Spanish and I'm good at Spanish, the likelihood that I'm gonna be successful with Japanese, my third language, will be much higher than someone who is starting their very first foreign language. Why? Because you pretty much have an idea of how you need to get there and what it takes if you've already done one language. That should be obvious. Champagne Resumo said, did you have a difficult time reading Japanese? I did in the beginning, yeah, because of all the yomikata, and I knew Chinese kanji, so I was often, reading signs or reading textbooks, and I knew what it meant, and I didn't know how to say it out loud though. And that was one embarrassing day I remember at Waseda University. I had been studying Japanese for 3.5 years at that point. Around the same time I made my YouTube channel, 3.5, 4 years of Japanese. Now we're getting closer to 10. Yeah, I've been on YouTube a while, 2019. And, I was used to reading the newspaper in Japanese, was not a problem, especially with my knowledge of kanji from Chinese. But one day in class, the teacher made us read one by one, each person, read a paragraph out of this newspaper. All right, next, now you read the next paragraph. And it got to me. She kept correcting me again and again and again and again. And all these characters that I was like, oh, I know that. Oh, wait, how do you say that? How do I know what it means? Wow, Anzen Hosho. Words like that. Anzen Hosho. Those were a lot of political words too. I mean, it's the newspaper. It's going to be a lot harder. But a lot of things I thought I knew how to read, I found out I really didn't know how to read out loud. And that was a humbling experience. So yeah, I found it hard. Yeah. So what Josh Allen said, what are some of your strategies for improving learning Chinese characters or Japanese kanji? Well, it's the most overwhelming part of the language. It's what makes it the hardest language in the world, especially Japanese with all the yomikata, the readings for the kanji. In Chinese, at least you're lucky, there's almost only one. For every single kanji, there's almost only just one reading, with a few exceptions like 银行的行，有的时候这个读行，行走的行 Sometimes this character, which is iku in Japanese, and in Chinese, it can be read hang, it can be read sing, but in Japanese, it has multiple readings. Could be many different things, which is annoying. It's really annoying. So I always think it's better to have some time under your belt with speaking Japanese and learning to listen to the language before you get into the kanji, because some of them that really make no sense, the yomikata, you'll just know them from context of having spoken it, and then you learn the kanji for it next. All right, here's a good example. Musko. Musko in Japanese, everyone knows musko. Everyone knows musko. It's one of the first words that you learn. It's son. Musko, musko-san, musko-sama. Musko makes no effing sense at all as a yomikata. We have, it makes absolutely no sense that would be read musko. But the only reason that it's not a big issue for Japanese learners, even though this makes no sense, it's not related to the kanji at all, this reading. Very strange. Most people don't have trouble with this word because you already know how to say musko and you're not really going to mess it up. But if you start there, you start with the kanji, it's really difficult. It's like some of them have no relation whatsoever. I brought one up earlier. All right, we have haru. Haru is spring, and ame, not ame. There's two ames. Be careful with the pitch accent with that. I'm talking about this one, rain. Put those together, we have harusame. Does not make any sense why this would ever be read harusame. It should be, right, if that's haru and this is ame, it should be haru ame, right? No, it's harusame. You're wrong. All right, how about this one? How would you read this kanji? You'll see this a lot around the new year. I don't want to say it. All right, let me write it. How would you read this? Hold on. Switching keyboards here. Here we go. This one is a lot easier to read in Chinese. I'll show you the difference. All right. In Chinese, this would be read in Chen, welcome spring, welcoming spring. You'll see that on a lot of like decorations in China and Japan for the Spring Festival or for, around New Year's in Japan, around January. In Chen, it's always read in Chen. It's always going to be read in Chen. But how would you read that in Japanese if I just told you that first character? I'm sorry, the second one, but the one I put for harusame up there. If that's haru, how would you read it here? Oh, John got it. John got it. You got that. Very weird, isn't it? Geishun. 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 No, makes no effing sense sometimes, right? Kange, if you know kange, like kange kai is like a welcoming ceremony. That's also huanying in Chinese, and it's always huanying hui. And it's always going to be huanying. There's no other reading. That's what makes Japanese just a little bit harder, or a lot of it harder, because some of these kanji, it's just like, why would you read it that way? They have kunyomi, onyomi, the Chinese reading, the Japanese reading, and then some words like musko that just make no effing sense at all, or harusame. No, absolutely no logic to that. And the reason for that is, folks, Chinese characters don't fit the Japanese language very well. Chinese characters came from China. They were meant to match the Chinese language. When Japanese scholars went over to China in ancient times and brought back this written language, which formerly Japan did not have a written language, when they brought this back, They paired it with Japanese words and sounds that already existed, and a lot of it doesn't fit well. There should not be more syllables. Each Chinese character has one syllable, but in Japan, a character can have multiple syllables, which makes no sense. No sense. So that is why one of the reasons Japanese ultimately is harder than Chinese. If that makes sense to you. All right, back to myth number 6. You need talent. You got to be, these are freaking hard, right? You got to be some kind of genius to figure this out. But honestly, you can have no talent at all, and you can still learn this. Think about it. Really think about it. Kids can learn this. Kids start learning Chinese characters from about the age of, they'll get introduced to it at about the age of 3 or 4, like starting to learn a few simple ones at home. And then they really get into it by elementary school. They're learning their first couple hundred. They're kids. You're smarter than a kid, right? You are. Give yourself credit. Yeah, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And just not to be rude, but think about it. Even people that are intellectually disabled, people with autism, people with like severe autism, not nonverbal, but severe autism or Down syndrome, they learn this too. They can also learn to speak. Some of them have difficulty with writing, but I was reading an article about people with Down syndrome, and at like a mid-level of Down syndrome, people can still learn to read books. So what's your excuse? What's your excuse? You could literally be intellectually challenged, and you can still learn to get fluent and good at a language and still learn to read and write. People who are intellectually disabled in Japan and China also, a lot of them are still able to read and write. So what's your excuse? I'm waiting for it. Really, really. What's your excuse? You got no excuses. I don't want to hear this is hard. With enough time and enough patience, even if you have no talent or negative talent, even if you have some disabilities or learning disabilities, you can still learn this freaking language. It might take you a little longer, but you can still learn it. I hope that motivates you. Not trying to put you down for not being able to read in the language you want yet, but I want to motivate you and say you can with enough time, effort, and patience. What you actually need is not talent. What you actually need is motivation. You can be pretty talented and not put that to work, not put that to serve yourself. But what's worth more in the end is the motivation. The saddest thing, the most bitter people in the world are those that are very intellectual, very smart, 120, 130, 140 IQ, geniuses that are unsuccessful in life. They have all the talent, they have all the actual ability, and none of the success, because that doesn't guarantee you anything. And same with talent and ability for learning languages. Even extra intelligence, I've read studies that said extra intelligence does help you. Higher IQ helps people to learn languages faster. But that doesn't mean that they actually will do it. So for everyone, all the normies out there like me, I don't think I have an especially ridiculously high IQ. We don't need it. You don't need that high IQ. You don't need a whole bunch of rare language learning talent. You just need a lot of motivation. And you can do it in a reasonable amount of time. AZ Saif said, hi, heart. Is having a tutor in Preply enough to learn and improve your Japanese speaking? I highly recommend getting tutors, and I use tutors a lot. Is it enough? That's a vague question, because number one, are you doing anything outside of the class? I had a Cantonese tutor for the last year, and he kicked my butt last week. He almost had me in tears. Actually, I was fine when he scolded me in the class. I'm like, yeah, he's exaggerating, which he was. But then I came home, I thought about it. I'm like, I'm bothered. I need to do better. I need to do better. So what was my problem? He was teaching me, but I wasn't spending enough time outside the classroom. And what is enough time? All right, I took his class for 2 hours a week over the last year, and I'm going to continue for 2 hours a week. And we do that class, unfortunately, on just one day. So it was a 2 hour marathon class. Better to split it up, but if you don't have the time, you don't have the time. And I did very little outside the class. So that's 8 hours a month I was getting with him. And I did maybe 3 or 4 outside of our class. And I was progressing, but it was purely piggybacking off my knowledge of Mandarin that was helping me make any progress in Cantonese. And I hope that goes for you, to give you a concrete example of what is not enough. I found it difficult to make any progress in Cantonese with 2 hours a week and a couple hours outside studying, outside of that time. I would go to the class 2 hours a week, study maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. Not good. No, even with all my years of Mandarin and all that knowledge and all that foundation, was still not making great progress. And you would make even less if you have no foundation in the language whatsoever. If you don't even have another similar language helping you, just a couple hours a week, if you're not doing your work outside of that tutor, it ain't gonna pay many dividends to you. All right. 华山十条, we have a comment from 华山十条. 你现在的日语跟中文哪个好？你学中文对学日语有帮助吗？ So 华山十条 asked me, how does your Japanese compare to your Chinese right now? And did Chinese help you in learning Japanese? Great question. When I first started this channel, there was a visible difference. Almost anyone could hear, even people that didn't know Japanese well. Maybe some didn't notice. All right, there was a big difference between my ability in Chinese and Japanese when I first started this channel. I'm talking about 2020, 2021, 2022. There was a difference that anyone that knows Japanese to a decent level would pick up on. Today, they're pretty dang even. I feel equally as confident in both languages, with the exception that I think I have a little bit of a better accent in Chinese. I think I have a more native sounding accent in Chinese than I do in Japanese, but that's also slowly been going away. So getting better. What made the big difference? Well, when I started this channel, I only had maybe 3.5, 4 years of Japanese under my belt at the most. And a lot of that learning that I spent with Japanese was in China. So I wasn't fully immersed in Japan for very long when I started this channel. That's not the case anymore. So I made leaps and bounds of progress. I feel equally confident in both languages right now, except I still think I can bring my Japanese accent up to the level of the Chinese accent that I have now. But other than that, I can hear a huge difference in my videos from 2020 to now. However, Studio Gruff's here. Hey, I can vouch for my low IQ. Matt, you're giving yourself too little credit, man. You're not below average IQ. I met you, Matt, and this is Studio Gruff. I met you, Studio Gruff. You don't have a below average IQ, and you have a good job. Congrats on your promotion recently too. Sorry you had to cancel your trip to Japan, but that was a good reason to have to cancel. Anyway, we have lots of questions in Chinese today, and they were from native speakers. All the Chinese that has been put in the chat was good, very good, written with no problem. Sometimes people will type messages to me in the chat here. They're not native, so I'm reading out the errors, but today was really good. Not that you can't, but I have to look over it to make sure that it's a native speaker. just start reading out the errors and it doesn't make sense. All right. Hi, minasan. Welcome, Studio Gruff. And Breezy's here. Breezy's a big fan of the channel. Thanks for being here. All right. We were talking about, to catch you up for those who just came in, we're busting myths here on the channel today. Myth number 6 was that you need talent or you have to be smart to learn a language, which is not true. More than talent, you need motivation. All right, let's move on to number 7. Only learning vocabulary. People put a lot of emphasis on learning vocabulary. And when I say people, unlike the last myth, I think the last myth mostly viewers, commenters, language learners think that. Viewers, commenters, things like you guys. This one, number 7, the emphasis on vocabulary, I hear a lot more from YouTubers. And hey, I'm a big fan of vocabulary too. I'd say that's my strong suit in pretty much every language. I memorize massive amounts of vocabulary, and I put that as a priority. I also like memorizing vocabulary, so that helps. I enjoy it. It's not always the best use of time in language learning to just memorize straight sheets of new vocabulary. But it's certainly not without any benefits. But I think, especially with the popularity of Anki, that we put as YouTubers, I haven't talked about this much, but I think YouTubers put too much emphasis on vocabulary and Anki and just straight memorizing words. And I'm saying that as a person who really loves and memorizes a lot of vocabulary. Here's the issue with that. All right, you get a word that you did not learn in a real conversation. You have almost no context except maybe a example sentence and maybe an electronic voice that reads it out to you if you're using Anki, or if you got it from a book. I don't care where it came from. It's a word you don't really know the context of. You're just picking it up from some third person or third party material. You can learn a lot of words. Let's say kick is easy in English. The, easy, most people know. Bucket. But do you know what it means to kick the bucket? When we take words apart and put them in different contexts or mash them up together, the meaning can change entirely. So take for example a word like put in English, put. This can be used in so many different contexts that just memorizing it as a word, like many Japanese do in their English books, or put, easy, 3 letters, is not necessarily very helpful. There's just so much context that's missing from that. Not only is it hard to just straight memorize words and then recall them in your active memory, your retrieval memory, with no context whatsoever, no like active use of this word. You've never heard it in a conversation with someone. You've never used it. Not only is that really hard to pull that memory out, but it's also hard to use it right. It's hard to form it into a coherent sentence. It's best to learn through real life context. That's why I understand that you're not going to be able to speak immediately when you have no vocabulary whatsoever, right? I don't know any words. How do I start with speaking? Right. You start with shadowing. You start with repeating after native speakers. There's books. There's CDs. I've recommended many different shadowing books. If you haven't joined my Discord, these are recommendations that I give to my Discord members on a pretty regular basis. Hey, Studio Graph, glad that you just joined the Japanese lesson series. Woohoo! And if you guys also want to become members, I encourage you to do that. You're welcome to join, and then you get all of Teacher Tommy's lessons, everything he's been working on. Ooh. All right, so another issue with learning purely off of these vocab lists. Again, I learned a lot of words from that, but there's let's call it a experimental period where I learn a word, don't really know the context other than an example sentence, or I saw it in one context from a book. I then like to go and use that in the real world, in real life. So let's take a Japanese word like shisetsu. Do you guys know this word, shisetsu? Let's say this is an intermediate Japanese word, shisetsu. All right, shisetsu. If you learn shisetsu from a book, you usually learn it in one context. What's shisetsu in English? It's gonna. Luckily, this one, I do like this dictionary because it does have two definitions for this word. You're gonna see one, the more, let's say, the more formal definition, which is like an establishment, a facility. It's kind of facility. Facility is the best one. 设施, 设施, 设施 in Chinese. Same word in Chinese. This one has additional meaning. This one can also mean rojin home, like where you put people who have retired. You put old people. Old person home, nursing home is also referred to as shisetsu. That's something you're unlikely to get from just raw memorizing. This is something I actually learned just from, yeah. Okay, it's the opposite. I love that. In Chinese, it's the opposite. Isn't that really annoying with some of the words in Japanese, like shokai? Look at this. 有一些用日文有一些汉字就是翻过来的，比如说就是介绍，对吧？但是写反了，介绍，日本人是这样写的。Like here's a word shokai to introduce. 自己紹介, self-introduction, shokai in Chinese, it's really annoying because the kanji is written backwards, and it's the same with shisetsu. So here we go. 介绍in Chinese is going to be written backwards. That's so annoying. Look at that. There's a lot of words like that, so be careful. Anyway, shisetsu, as our friend here just pointed out, is written backwards in Chinese kanji. Anyway, shisetsu in Japanese also means rojin homu. I heard that in conversation, actually, with my husband and my in-laws. And I would have never gotten the context of that word from just raw memorizing it. A lot of words have multiple meanings, multiple definitions, multiple usages. There's also formal and informal words, as I talked about earlier. You are very likely to memorize something that's too formal for conversation in Japanese, whatever you're learning. There's lots of words like I brought up in Chinese, the hanjian versus xiaojian. Hanjian is going to be 书面语, like your formal vocabulary, versus 小件 is more your 口语, your oral vocabulary. You're not going to be able to get that context just from a word list, or even books. It's hard. Even vocabulary books or textbooks, and vice versa. When you just learn from speaking to people, which I do know a lot of people that only learn most of their Chinese from just speaking, talking to people in bars or hanging out. They tend to write very poorly or use words that you could not write that. It's not just, write a paper, and it's like a 7-year-old writing a paper, instead of using the proper format. We don't write the same way in English as we speak. If you just record your voice and do a dictation and write a paper the way you speak, it's going to be a terrible paper. We don't write the same way we speak. And the same goes for Chinese and Japanese as well, whatever language. So these are things that need to be sorted out pretty much one by one by usage and actual human interaction. So I am a vocab person. I enjoy learning vocabulary, but it's best to learn it through real life contexts. After I've done the core words for Korean and after I've done the core words for Cantonese, I'm still going through the most common 2,000 for Cantonese, but it's more important to have a list that's relative to my life that I heard my teacher say. He says a word I didn't know. I thought it was important. I write it down. I still do that for Japanese. And here's some words that I either one to review or went through recently in Japanese. And this is my list. Where did this come from? I either heard it, I saw it, someone said it, it was on TV, or maybe I read it in a book. But this is my list, and I have the context for that. Someone else didn't make this. I actually heard people say this, so I know this is legit. This is used. Oh, gakudo. Yeah, this was weird. When I was walking around Kinugawa Onsen, there were signs that said, like, 子供を交通事故から守りましょう. Like, protect kids from traffic accidents. And then it had a sign that said gakudo anzen. And I hadn't really heard gakudo before, but I wrote it down. Now I have a memory from that word too. So I know this is used in Japan because I saw it on signs. Didn't come from a suspicious list. And I know the context that it's kind of formal, and I saw it on a sign. Anyway, you should be making your own kind of personal vocabulary lists that are related to your life that you saw in the real world. And you'll have a memory from them too. And that makes it really easy to memorize. Now I can think of where I saw that word on a sign. Unfortunately, if you don't live in Japan, you're not going to see many signs in Japanese, but you may remember something from a TV program. You may remember something from, I don't know, something you saw online, and it'll stick in your memory, and you have a little story with it. So while you are still memorizing your core words, make your own list too. Start jotting things down. Start making your own database, and you're going to have a lot more luck with these words than the words that are just part of a list. I mean, memorize both, but sometimes you don't get the right context of words from the decks. You don't. And you're likely to use them wrong, which is fine, but if you never get the chance to use them, you're not speaking regularly, you're not going to fix your mistakes. You're not, or other people won't be able to fix it for you. There's a rumor that Japanese people will not correct you. It depends on who your friends are. Well, even if they're very shy and don't want to correct you, if you say something wrong, there's nothing clearer than, There's nothing more clear that you got that wrong than they didn't understand. So for the people that you think might be shy, they're not going to want to correct you. If they didn't understand what you said, then you know you said it wrong. Point clear. Got to do that one again. All right. Kaylee said, do you think that learning hiragana and katakana have to be learned first, or is it okay to learn after I start speaking? I want to have good conversations with my Japanese friends. Thanks. You can learn some basic phrases of Japanese without worrying at all about hiragana, katakana. But in the long run, you have to understand that just like kids, when we don't know how to read, don't know how to write, we hear a word, there's a certain percentage of words that we didn't hear right, and we'll say it wrong. I heard someone say, oh, it triggered me so bad. Manipulation. Someone said manipulation. Manipulation. I heard an adult say manipulation online, and I just want to pull my hair. It's not manipulation, it's manipulation. But doesn't that sound like something a kid would say? Manipulation. Sounds like something a kid would say. Why? Because kids don't know how to read and write, and they didn't hear it right. They end up having a lot of cute words and wrong pronunciations that come out. And by the way, that will happen to you too if you don't know hiragana and katakana. You're going to misunderstand some words. You're going to think they said manipulation when they actually said manipulation. And you won't get that sorted out until you actually learn how to spell manipulation, or you see it written down and you can read it. All right. So drilling in the point that, yeah, you can learn some phrases in Japanese and learn to speak without hiragana and katakana, but inevitably you're going to mess up some words and end up sounding cute. You thought you heard it right, you thought you got it right, but you didn't. You got to learn to read and write to fix that. All right. Po Dog said, I use the book Colloquial Cantonese to learn. What material do you use? I use material straight from Hong Kong. We can check it out. Hi, this is my outfit for today. This is my outfit for today. All right, everybody, this is my outfit for today. If you don't like it, you can leave. All right, I got the book. Okay, you asked me. What do we got? This was the first book I got. It's way too freaking hard. It was too hard for me at that time. This was Guangdonghua. This was bought in Hong Kong. I bought this. It was just, this was more intermediate. And, all right, so this says, if you know Chinese, you know that says Dian Can, but it's Ding Can in Cantonese. It doesn't look hard. You know, it's all spaced out and stuff, but the actual conversations were very hard. The very first chapter was talking about buying insurance, and I'm like, what the? Yeah. This is daily conversation. They're talking about buying insurance. I'm like, I need to learn how to say hello and introduce myself before I. But they had some phrases that were useful, like 好羡慕, 好羡慕, 我很羡慕你, like I'm envious, like 羨ましい in Japanese. Or 吃饭 was also, I think the tones are different in Cantonese, but yeah, so I got this one. That means cooking, by the way. Got that one. Haven't stuck. Dude, my Cantonese teacher brought this one back. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me. This is, I thought this was a little above my level. Yeah, he brought this book back. My teacher brought this for me because, like I said earlier, it's very hard to find resources for some of these lesser studied languages. Some of you who brought it up that they were studying Hawaiian, good luck finding material. I couldn't find any more material than a few books in all of Japan that were beginner Cantonese, and that was too easy at a certain point. So my teacher went to Hong Kong and got it for me, and then he brought this one back. And we're using 地道粤语. We're using 地道粤语. 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 I believe that's how you say it in Cantonese. It's 地道粤语 in Chinese. And this one, again, little hard, little above my level, but folks, count yourself lucky if you're studying Mandarin Chinese. If you're studying Mandarin Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Korean, you have all the resources in the world. I could not find much, so I literally had to get books imported from Hong Kong. Yeah. Is Cantonese harder to learn? Cantonese is harder to learn, said Johnny. Harder than what? Harder than Japanese? Harder than Mandarin? I would agree it's harder than Mandarin. And what really sucks about Cantonese for me is it's a spoken language, and I'm trying to learn it with books, and the books, my method, like I love reading, folks. Reading is a big part of how I study languages. Does not work well for a dialect. Does not work well. A dialect, okay, people are going to get offended that I called Cantonese a dialect, a spoken language. It's not a written, it can't be written. It can't be written, but Cantonese is a spoken language more than it is a written language, although you can write it. But you know what I mean. It's very 口语. It's very oral, very colloquial, super colloquial. They have more swear words in Cantonese than I think any other language I've studied. That's a compliment to Cantonese. They're very creative with the insults. Maybe they want to send a few of those insults, or I just said Cantonese is a dialect. But what I mean is it's a spoken language. So learning it from a book doesn't work well. It's just like, it's almost as bad as saying, I want to learn Osaka Ben from a book, or Tsugaru Ben, these dialects of Japanese from a book. They're spoken languages. You got to rely on speaking. So unfortunately, book study doesn't work so well with these very colloquial, slangy spoken languages. Doesn't work well. And that hurts me because I love reading, and it's just not smart to study Cantonese from reading because it's a very spoken language. David said, don't always learn Chinese and Cantonese, but when I do it with Oriental Pearl. Yeah. All right. I'll teach you one thing at least in Cantonese. What would be useful? Well, I already said 大家好 is like 大家好. Hey everybody, 皆さんこんにちは。今日は一緒に広東語を勉強しましょう。皆さん、広東語に興味を持っていますか？広東語の一言言ってください。単語だけ。知ってますか？一言だけ。はい、どうぞ。実は日本人は広東語の一つの言葉わかる。大体みんなわかる。なぜかというと、香港の有名な映画は、日本で結構人気あるから、この一言だけ日本人ほぼみんなわかる。その言葉は何でしょうか？わかる？わかりますか？わかったら、コメント欄でぜひ書いてください。Did you even understand what I said? I said I said, do you have any interest in Cantonese? Have you ever thought of, do you want to study Cantonese? Do you know even one word in Cantonese? If you know one word in Cantonese, tell me. And also that in Japan, pretty much every Japanese person knows this one word or phrase. Pretty much all Japanese people know one word in Cantonese. It's kind of funny because it came from a Hong Kong movie and it's very popular in Japan. If you know that phrase, tell me in the comments section right now in the chat. What is that phrase? The one thing that Japanese people know in Cantonese. I'll give you a big freaking clue. That same phrase in Chinese, in Mandarin, is 没问题. Okay. 没问题 is Mandarin, but how do you say it in Cantonese? All Japanese people know how to say this. It's like one of the only Cantonese words they know. They don't even know 豆姐sai or 唔使客氣. They don't even know all that. Like, thank you. Oh, no problem. They don't even know that. They know one phrase. All right. You got a few. I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you know it. What? No, it's not that. Daijongfu. It's not Daijobu. Daijongfu. Is that how you say it in Cantonese? Daijobu. It's not. It's the Mandarin equivalent is 没问题. 没问题. How do you say it in Cantonese? How do you say 没问题? Also known as no problem in Cantonese. It's the only thing that Japanese people know. Come on, somebody write it. I'm going to write it. If you don't hurry up. How about Vietnamese? As I said earlier, but Johnny wasn't here, I'm putting Vietnamese as my goal next year because I am trying to get good at something. I don't want to be the jack of all trades, master of none. Do you speak Fujonese? No. Fujonese. Okay, one thing you have to understand about a lot of these dialects or spoken languages is depending on the dialect, a lot of them have huge overlaps with Mandarin. If you talk about like Dongbeihua, the northeastern dialect, it's almost the same as Mandarin. Not so familiar with Fujonese, but they also have Minanhua and Kejiahua in Fujian province. Lots of dialects there, but some of them sound a lot like they have a lot of overlap with Mandarin, by the way. All right, nobody got it? It's Momantai. Momantai. 没问题, Momantai. Every Japanese person knows Momantai. Momantai is Cantonese for no problem. Momantai. So don't tell me I never taught you anything. You now know a Cantonese word that's Momantai. Hello from Australia. Hey, do you speak German? No. Oh, 对, somebody, Po Dog said, 对唔住. That means sorry. Now, Japanese people don't normally know that. They only know Momantai in the Cantonese word. 对唔住 is like 对不起 in Mandarin. 对唔住, sorry in Cantonese. 对唔住, 对不起, same thing. Mandarin and Cantonese. Funny thing is, you know, maybe you don't know. How do you say Cantonese? Oh yeah, Mondai Nai, Momantai, Mondai Nai. Yes, there's a lot of you can see the overlap in how I'm progressing in multiple Asian languages quickly, quicker than I would if I were going outside of Asian languages. There's a lot of overlap. Momantai, as Ace of Shack just brought up. Hey, Ace of Shack, nice to have you here, my friend. Oh, I forgot to tell you, if you're interested, we're having a little party tomorrow. It was going to be outside, but you know where I live, so if you want to come, we're starting at 1. It's not going to be nice weather tomorrow, so I don't think we're going to have the Ohanami party. But yeah, Ace of Shack said it sounds like Mondai Nai, Momantai, Mondai Nai. Yes, that's kanji, because each country, each kanji-based language, they kind of keep a lot of the same pronunciations. You can find that a lot, right? I'll give you an example. Anquan in Chinese. Anquan is anzen in Japanese. It's onquan in Cantonese, and anjong in Korean. All those languages kept that an sound, more or less. And well, Cantonese, it changed to onquan. Anquan, anzen, anjong, safety. And I just said that in Cantonese, Mandarin, Korean, and Japanese. Sounded pretty similar, didn't it? That's making it hard for me, by the way. That's making it hard for me, by the way. Some of these words. I messed up yesterday and I said a Korean word in Cantonese. It was really close. Korean and Cantonese have some similar words as well. It's weird. It's weird. They both call this character men in Chinese, men, like a door, is called moon. In Korean, it's called moon in Cantonese. And in Japanese, it's called mon. You might not recognize that character. That's mon. Mon. Mon is like a gate. It's written like this. It's written like this in traditional characters. Mon, men, moon, moon. Mon, men, moon, moon, mon, men, moon, moon. I sound like a crazy person sometimes at home trying to study these things that sound so freaking close. Moving on. Wait, why does every Japanese person know 没问题 or 没问题? I think that I missed that. Sirius said it's because there's a famous movie from Hong Kong that a lot of Japanese people like, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's called Momantai. Maybe the name of the movie is Momantai. Yeah, Moon, you got that. So a lot of people, you guys are catching up on this, that somebody said Anjong. Yeah. And Moon, do we have are you Solo Mochi, are you studying Korean right now? So you picked up on that? Yeah, those words sound similar. Moon and moon. Moon in Cantonese, moon in Korean. Is that a lemon sour? Ninja Monkey said. I wish. It was earlier today, but I stopped drinking a long time ago. I had some friends over. We were playing Mario, and now I'm drinking water. But it will be filled with a delicious lemon sour tomorrow because I'm having a party. And Ace of Shack, you're welcome to come if you want to stop by. I think there's going to be mostly Japanese people there tomorrow. So, the lily pad said, I subbed when I discovered your Chinese content. 加油, thank you. Probably Mandarin Chinese content. I want to make some more Cantonese content. I don't really have any. Playing which Mario? We were at the end, Tommy and I played Sunshine, Super Mario Sunshine from 2002. And earlier in the day, we were playing Smash Brothers. We were playing, Mario Party. We were playing everything. We even played some old 64 games because I have the membership. Oh, Ace of Shack, you want to come? All right. We're going to start the party at like 1 o'clock, but you can come later if you want. And, people will be coming and going. Where's the party? At my house. Where's the party? We have Jerome said, good night, Miss Alyssa, Cantonese. Oh, Joe Tao. 你要走啊，唔可以走，唔可以走，唔可以走，老生同你一齊傾偈。依家喺香港幾時啊？應該好晏，好晏。What time is it in Hong Kong? It's probably quite late. He's leaving, but thanks for the super chat in Hong Kong dollars. I almost met this guy actually. I was in Hong Kong, but the timing didn't work out. Next time, he's a student, I believe. Oh, it's nearly. See, he understood nearly 1 a.m. in Hong Kong. Okay, 1點鐘，而家喺香港1點鐘你應該快啲返覺，快啲返覺啊！老道生快啲返覺。So he should go to bed soon, and I'll go to bed soon too, because it's 2 a.m. Yes, it's 1 a.m. in Hong Kong. It's 2 a.m. in Japan, and I always do these so very late. I always do these live streams quite late because most of you are in European and North American time. Give me a little bit of leeway. I'm usually quite tired when I do these. I have trouble keeping up with the chat, and I don't feel like I'm on my. I'm not super. I don't feel really witty at this hour of the night. Like, I'm a bit tired. You can give me some leeway there, especially reading. Yeah, 5D. There you go. Johnny knows 5D. 快点 5D. Except, yeah, that I'll show you how to write it in Cantonese. It's written differently. Oh, I don't have traditional characters on this computer. Kuai. It is the same kuai. And then this D is actually a weird D. It's got like 口字旁 on the side of it. So you understand, everyone, that there are like traditional characters and simplified characters. Mainland China uses simplified, Hong Kong, Taiwan uses traditional, and Japan uses a mix of both. Oh, here it is. This is the de that they use in Cantonese for 5D or 快的. 快的. It sounds like 快递 in Chinese, like delivery. So Japan uses a mix of both traditional and simplified and Japan only kanji, which are weird. Like Shibuya, this kanji makes Chinese people cringe. It's just Shibuya. You've been to Shibuya? Have you been there? I go there all the time. Shibuya. This character makes Chinese people cringe because it's made up. It's totally made up. It's not real. Okay, it's real, but it's not. They're going to say it's not right. It should be written like this. And then if you're writing in truly traditional characters, it's written even differently. Yeah. This character is like hard to look at, that Shibuya. I remember coming to Japan for the first time and looking at these Japanese only kanji. They're a different way of simplifying and thinking, that one's fake. That's not real. It's a fake kanji. What is this crap? It's like, it didn't look real to me. I'm like, you just made that up. That doesn't exist. But I think that's how people in Taiwan view the simplified characters in China too. Like, y'all just made that up. It's not real. How could you take the heart out of love? Literally, they took the heart out of the character love. This is I in Japanese, I in Chinese, oi in Mandarin. I'm sorry, oi in Cantonese. I is love. It should have a heart in it, which is the kanji for heart. In the simplified version, they took it out, and it's like, you can't take heart out of love. That's the Mandarin way of simplifying it. Japan still uses. I'll show you. Spot the difference. Sorry for everyone who's watching this on replay. I don't know if like years from now or months from now, I don't know if you'll be able to see these, but yeah, there's different ways that these kanji were simplified. I have had to learn them all. It's crazy, like overlapping, learning the same thing over and over again. with little minute differences, and some minute differences that will just drive you crazy, like atsuroku, pressure. In Mandarin, it's got one little, it's called yali, and it's just got one difference. And you in the comment section, can you spot the difference? It's one line difference. So silly. Oh, thank you, Jerome, for writing Shibuya Sugu. Yeah, that's a really hard one to write. And what Jerome wrote is true traditional characters. That's how you write Shibuya. Japan doesn't even use it. Japan has simplified the character for Shibuya, simplified it into something that they just made up. But then it's weird. It's weird. I'm being a nerd now because these things fascinate me. We don't have to go too in depth into that. What's unfortunate is I spent all this time learning characters of multiple versions of Chinese characters in multiple languages, and none of that shines through in my videos because it almost never comes up. I've almost never had the chance to read on the spot or read out a paragraph or whatever in a video. So all this thing that really took the most time for me to learn does not even show through in the videos. Can't really be used in the videos. But whatever. You should take the Kanken. Ha ha, I was thinking about it, but gosh, if I do that, I'm not going to have any time to improve my Korean and Cantonese. There's only so many hours in a day, but I really want to. I have the books back there. The books for the Japanese kanji test that Japanese people take. It's called the, as he said, Kanken, or the Kanji Kante. Kanji Kante. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, Kanji Kente. Sorry. It's called the Kanji Kente. And it's a test that elderly Japanese people, or women, middle-aged Japanese women with nothing better to do, take that test just for fun. And it's really hard for foreigners, super hard. Most of the foreigners that even bothered taking it were Chinese anyway, so they were good at kanji, but every year, a few Westerners take it. And that's really impressive at the high ends. Like, even Japanese people don't know the kanji at like level 2 and level 1. Level 1 is the highest. A lot of stuff that, especially level 1, is obscure, but level 2 is like college level kanji and yoji jukugo. Yoji jukugo are changyu in Chinese, also known as 4-character idioms. Super hard to memorize, and I suck at those. I learned a lot with Chinese, and then I never used them except maybe in my thesis a little. And I just said with Japanese, well, we could skip most of these because I already put the time into learning a lot of those in Chinese and never used them, and ended up forgetting half of them or more. So that goes on the list of, if you enjoy it, do it, but probably not a priority. Badet Mando said, I know it seems like a dumb question, but when people say study Chinese for 2 hours a day, what do you actually do when you study other than flashcards and listen to Chinese? I don't think that's a dumb question at all. I think that's a great question. And I don't know that any YouTubers in the language learning realm of YouTube have actually gone through their real daily routine. I was thinking of doing a video like that, and like really, I did do a live stream where I broke it down, and it took a long time to explain. But I've never done a video like that. So you want to know what I do? That's totally going to depend on what level I am on in that language. I'm going to assume you're starting from scratch, or you're a beginner. All right, we'll take that. And I'm going to spend 2 hours a day studying this language. That's a lot for a beginner to take on, number one. I don't know that, because more beginner material is quite dry at that level. You're not enjoying the fun part of the language yet. When you can start to understand a lot, or talk to people, or read a book, and the time flies by, you're really just drilling a lot of basic information into your head at that point. So 2 hours is a little harsh on a bare beginner, but all right, theoretically, if you just want to go all in 2 hours a day, where are you going to start? How are you going to spend those 2 hours? Every day is different though. I don't do the same exact thing every day, even as a beginner. When I have my class, that's 2 hours. That's my class. That's teacher talking time. And they talk to me. I write down the mistakes that I made or the words that I couldn't recall out of my immediate memory. If the teacher says a new word I think is important, I write it down. That's my class time, right? And I doubt most of you have a teacher or a tutor. So outside of the class time, the 2 hours, I'm going to go through the core vocabulary, the most common couple hundred words, or go through the most common 1,000 words. I do that through Japanese Pod 101, their sister website, Cantonese Class 101. I'm still going through that. So I'm still in a little over year one with Cantonese right now. I have a book, so whatever we covered in the class, I'm writing the words down and transferring them into my database from the book that I found important. But like I said, Cantonese is really hard to learn from a book, but I assume you're not learning Cantonese. You're probably learning something that's not just mainly a spoken language. So vocabulary, if you're trying to break down 2 hours, you could probably do 30 minutes making flashcards and going through the flashcards, leaving that for the next day. Usually I'll take the new words and I use a form of spaced repetition. I guess you could, some form of repetition. I will get the new words, make the flashcards, go through those, write them down on a piece of paper again and again and again, say them out loud. Okay, these are the new words I'm learning. And then I'll go through those again the next day. And if I can still remember them the next day, the ones I could remember, I put them in the long-term database. I take them out and write new flashcards. So 30 minutes a day would be fine with the flashcards vocabulary. And then another 30 minutes can be spent on shadowing. There's lots of shadowing books that we'll go through with a CD, or if they're a little more upgraded, they have a QR code. Usually you scan a QR code. Even this book has it. There's a QR code right there. You scan it, it'll read it out to you. Do shadowing with that for another 30 minutes. And then, speaking is important. 30 minutes of speaking practice, but you don't have someone to talk to, that's an issue. What would you spend the next hour on? That's a lot for a beginner, because I can't even tell you go listen to a podcast like I do with Cantonese now, because you're not going to get most of it. But on a normal day, when I'm a beginner with 1 year of Cantonese, I'm going to do 30 minutes of vocabulary, 30 minutes of listening to this or doing the shadowing, and then I'm going to spend the next hour probably watching a movie, probably listening to a podcast. But it took a while to move up to that. So that's why I say it's really hard to be a bare beginner and do 2 hours, because, all right, I guess you're doing an hour of vocab and an hour of the shadowing, and that's brutal, man. That's dry. I'd rather watch a movie for an hour, but if you can't understand even 10%, it's really pointless to be watching a movie. But yeah, that's why 2 hours is really, really hard as an absolute bare beginner. Wouldn't really recommend that. It's a lot. But if it doesn't bother you, you could do an hour of vocabulary, hour of shadowing. Love from India. Thank you. We got another super chat. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate everyone who donated. And we had earlier, Jim Ross came in here and donated 50 memberships. I'm happy for everyone that got that membership. And you get to join Tommy's Japanese lessons, which is awesome. I wrote the script, but he does the acting, and he did a really good job. Definitely did a good job on that. But today I covered all the points that I said I was going to talk about. I'll give you a little review, because I know not everybody was here for the whole thing, and some of it was split up. There were 7 points. Busting language learning myths. Number 1 being language learning is easy, or you can just copy, paste, do this, repeat, copy, paste, do this, repeat. It is simply not easy. It's very time consuming. It's a long process. It's multifaceted, and it's not something you can just do this, repeat, do this, repeat, do this, repeat, even over a long span of time. There's 4 different skills that you need to balance out: reading, writing, listening, speaking, and just simply doing 1 or 2 things on repeat is not going to fully develop all those 4 skills in a balanced way. And furthermore, I think it's demotivating to people to tell them something's easy when it's not easy. and they go to try it, do it for about 2 weeks, figure out it's not easy, and then quit. And even worse yet, they quit because they think there's something wrong with them. I'm not talented. I'm not good at this because this guy said it's easy. That video got whatever millions of views. So I just suck. I should just quit. It's been 2 weeks. It's not that easy. Very demotivating thing to tell people, that something like learning Japanese is easy when it is not. Even if you're telling them, oh, it's easy, but it takes a long time. Just do this simple thing over and over again, or these few simple things. Very, very deceiving and deceptive. It's not helpful to people. And I think it's likely to lead them to want to give up. Number 2, I went over you can learn language like a child does. No, you can't. You're an adult. You don't have the neuroplasticity of a child. You have a developed brain. You're a grown-ass man. You're not a child. And there are ways that, in many ways, some children pick up accents better than adults do. That goes back to their brains still being in the stages of development. But adults have advantages too, in that we have more attention span, we have motivation to learn a language, we have a desire to learn a language, whereas children are kind of forced to learn second languages by their parents. There's also this myth that goes along with that you learn like a child by watching a bunch of TV or movies, cartoons. I think that's very silly. It totally ignores the blatant fact that children do not just sit and watch TV all day. That's not good for their development. And they also have parents, native speakers, with them 24 hours a day correcting every little mistake they make, and children make a lot of mistakes. So that's a silly metaphor, and just very easy to poke a hole in that. Stop telling people that. Stop telling people that. It's not true. YouTubers often tell people that. And it sells. It really sells because people want to believe that. People want to believe these things and whatever, millions of views, but they'll say a bunch of bullshit with the utmost confidence. I think some of them, and I've talked to, like, one of my friends believes this. He really believes that. Just like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Did your parents just put you in a room with a TV 24/7? That's how you came to how you are today? All right. Well, anyway, it's a silly thing to say. Number 3, you can't learn fast as an adult. I think less fewer YouTubers say that, more just people in the comments section believe that. You can't learn fast. You can't learn a new language as an adult. It's too late for me. I'm over 20. I'm over 30. I'm over 40. I'm over 50. Whatever. They'll just plug the number, their age in, and say, I'm too old for this. You're not. There's a lot of advantages to being an adult. Remember, you have 20, 30, 40, 50 years of experience. You know a lot of stuff. You might not think you know a lot of stuff, but you know a lot of stuff. You know what the economy is. You know what neuroscience is. I just said a word, neuroplasticity. Most of you probably know what that means and what I'm talking about. Explain that to a child. They might be able to say the word, they don't know what it means. They might be able to say it perfectly with a perfect accent too, but you have a lot of concepts that you know, and all you have to do is plug that into your target language, just learn the word for that, and you already know what it means. Already know the ideas, the theories. So adults have a lot of advantages, a lot of experience that makes certain aspects of language learning easier for adults. But accent is a different thing. That's a bit harder to learn as an adult. We went over that earlier in the live stream if you want to know why. Watch it on replay. Number 4, we went over full immersion, the misunderstandings and the total redefinition of the word full immersion by YouTubers, specifically Matt versus Japan uses the word immersion a lot wrong. Immersion is not, it's not just I read a lot of books or I watch a lot of TV or listen to a lot of podcasts. That's linguistically, we call that I read a lot of books, I listened to a lot of podcasts. Full immersion in the linguistic definition is totally being immersed in the is totally being immersed in the language. As in, I go to that country, I use nothing but Japanese because I'm here in Japan. I almost don't touch my native language at all. This is full immersion. That's very hard to do because obviously you're going to have to give up everything and be in that environment. But just this word has completely lost its meaning. And no need to oversell your methods. You can just say, I read a lot of books, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and call it that. But perhaps that's too long of a title, and it's easier to say immersion, but that is not immersion. That is not full immersion. I'm a big proponent of full immersion. I do full immersion with every language. I go all in. I don't want to speak English. I'm in China, I'm only going to speak Chinese. I'm in Japan, I'm only going to speak Japanese. And I can do that because I have a Japanese spouse, or I use Japanese for my job. Almost don't touch English. That is full immersion. Not something you're going to prescribe to people living in America. Not that you can't learn English in America, or you can't learn Japanese in America, but you can't really do full immersion. You're going to quit your job. You need to be surrounded by speakers of that language to do full immersion. Okay, number 5, you don't need grammar. A lot of people say don't bother studying grammar at all. It's useless, pointless, just dumb school stuff they make you do for busy work. I think that's a misunderstanding of the actual learning of grammar. That's more of drills, grammar drills, which you see a lot of in Japan, and it's sad how they learn English and for 6 years and don't come out speaking English. They also don't do full immersion because they're using English. They're barely using English in the classroom at all. When they're learning English here in Japan, 95% of the class is taught in Japanese. They're barely getting any English at all. Would help them a lot to only use English, but I don't think there's a lot of qualified teachers here that can speak on that level, only using English. Whatever. Anyway, actual fast grammar acquisition can be found in real life conversations, actual human interaction. I know, folks. I know the social anxiety levels are going up the roof, but having an actual relationship to actual communication, drawing these connections between the grammar point and how to use that in conversation, or hearing people use this grammar point in conversation, it's a much more effective way than grammar drills. But I think we give learning grammar a bad name because we think drilling in the book, here's the grammar point. Okay, I'm going to fill in the multiple choice questions, A, B, C, and that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. So that's a misunderstanding about grammar that a lot of people have. And heck, people didn't like the way they learned in school. So they have all the reason to hate grammar if they think that that's all it is, right? So it's a way of telling people what they want to hear. Throw the grammar books out. You don't need that crap. Well, they already hated it in the first place. So that's an easy sell. Like, of course they're going to agree with you. Yeah, throw that crap out. Grammar all sucks. And I think it's really misunderstanding and misrepresenting what grammar studies actually are when they're done effectively. Okay, not in the crappy classroom setting, especially the one that doesn't even teach in the target language. Very silly waste of time. Agreed. But saying don't learn grammar at all is misleading. Don't say that. That's a myth. You do need grammar. Number 6, you need talent to be good at languages. You need intelligence. You need to be super smart, super talented. Yeah, there are people that are smart and talented, and they may learn faster than you, or they may not because they're not motivated. All right, you can be a genius, 140 IQ, and achieve nothing in life because you don't have motivation. That happens all the time. It happens every day, my friends. Those end up being the crappiest, most bitter people of all. Unfortunately, you want to meet a mean person, like troll material on the internet. Smart people who are not successful in life, they love to tear down other successful people because obviously they feel like you don't deserve it. But with language learning, although intelligence helps and talent helps, you don't need it. What you need is a lot of motivation, and that can make up for even intellectual disabilities. People with learning disabilities, dyslexia, they can still learn languages. Even people with Down syndrome learn to read. So again, like I asked earlier, what's your excuse? What's your excuse? All right, I hope that motivates you though. You don't need talent, you need motivation. Number 7 was the last point that I covered about the myths, debunking the myths of language learning, and that was only learning vocabulary or putting a tremendous tremendous emphasis. Please forgive me, it's 2 a.m. 2:22 a.m. Tremendous emphasis on learning vocabulary only, but understand without context, especially real conversation context, that's really lacking. I'm a person that loves to study vocabulary, but you have to understand that a lot of words have multiple meanings, and you might know the word individually, but not together as a phrase. So understand that vocabulary memorizations works best with being paired with real life conversations, a language exchange partner, someone you can talk to and test these words out on and hear them in their actual context. Also listening for what that person's saying, words you don't understand, making a collected list of those words and memorizing those yourself. You'll have a memory that's associated with it. I remember when so-and-so used this word, I wrote it down. Much easier to memorize that than lists, but you can memorize lists. Just test them out on real people and actually take them into your active memory. They're not in your active memory when you just learn them from Anki decks or from textbooks. Don't expect to be able to speak and use those words in real life just because you learned it from an Anki deck. I'm not saying don't learn it from an Anki deck. I'm saying you need to test that word out and use it with a real person to be able to memorize it and put it in your active speaking vocabulary. You want to learn how to speak, right? You don't want to learn Japanese, Chinese, Korean, whatever to be mute. That happens a lot, and it's really sad. I've seen it so many times as an English teacher. Taught a lot of people, folks, probably nearly, oh my gosh, I probably taught nearly 1,000 people English at this point. And I've seen a lot of problems, a lot of patterns. And one of the most unfortunate patterns I saw with the adults who only got English from, let's say, from an early age. They were learning English, but they never had a chance to speak. They got all the reading and writing practice in school. They got to listen to a lot of English. They'll watch English TV shows even now and understand a lot. I can talk to them and they can understand what I'm saying. I'll ask them a question, and the biggest problem was they couldn't answer. They couldn't speak themselves. They could understand, listen to a podcast, listen to a TV show, watch Friends, watch some complicated stuff in English, and could not really engage in conversation. Why? It's a separate skill. It's a totally separate skill. Listening and speaking are not the same thing. They're sometimes complementary, but don't expect just because you listen to a lot of material that's going to translate automatically to being able to speak, especially when you're not opening your mouth. You're not talking to anyone or trying to actively make your own sentences and retrieve those words in real time. Like you can't stumble on a word for 30 seconds and expect that person to have the attention span to listen to you. It's very painful. That's why you need to get quite fast. And real conversation will get you there. I think most of you want to learn to speak the languages, right? And the most important part is not only getting your memorization down, but having a chance to practice the act of speaking. I know, it's scary. Social anxiety, socializing with people. It's a little scary, but necessary if that's your goal to speak. Hi, Oriental Pearl. I don't know if it's a myth, but for older people like myself, we feel like we are too old. I went over this one. Yeah. We are too old to learn a language, unlike very young children, not necessarily fluency, but even basics of a new language. Yeah, we just went over this one. It's a myth. It is. All right. So as we get older, a lot of people use this as a cope, as a crutch, something they can use as an excuse. Like, I'm 20, so I'm too old to learn. I'm 30, so I'm too old to learn. I'm 40. They just insert their age. I'm 50, too late for me. What is true is, obviously, if you're a child, your brain is still developing. We went over this. So it's going to be easier for you to pick up things like accent and naturally learn a language. Although you don't have a lot of concepts, we went over this earlier. You might know how to say the word keidzai when you're 5 years old, but you don't know what keidzai means. You might know how to say economy when you're 5 years old, but you don't know what the economy is. So adults have that advantage, but All right, here's the other thing. As you get older, especially if you're not exercising and keeping your body in shape, you do experience cognitive decline. Unfortunately, you can slow it down, but unfortunately, yes, as you get older, you start to lose IQ points. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's a sad fact. It sucks. So, shout out to all of you that are going to the gym because you're slowing down almost. You're slowing down that cognitive decline. But yeah, that's one reason it does get harder to learn a language as you get older, especially into your 50s, 60s, 70s. That cognitive decline can get you if you were not taking care of your body. And also, the older you get, the more, especially after puberty, like after the age of 14, when you start getting into your 20s, it becomes harder to learn new things, but not impossible. Your ability to pick up the foreign accent is going to get much harder, it's going to get much more difficult as you get older. But don't give yourself that excuse. It is still possible. And like I said, even people with learning disabilities can learn a language. Even people with Down syndrome can often learn to read. So even if you lost a few IQ points as you're getting older, it's still not an excuse, okay? Might take you a little bit longer or a few more years longer. But hey, remember, children don't always have as much free time as us older adults do, or the motivation to learn. Remember, if you're retired, like, what's your excuse? You got all day. You're in your 60s and 70s, might be a little harder to learn, but hey, you got 14 hours a day to study. Do you speak French? No. Thank you, Oriental Pro. Just tuned in. Hey. Thank you for the $20 super chat. I really appreciate that. Anyone got some pressing questions? Oh, Beth is here. Double Kick Chick. I saw you. We're celebrating your 45th birthday, Beth. Congratulations to you. I believe that was you. Yeah. Currently watching to cap off my 45th birthday. Double Kick Beth. Hey, happy birthday to you. Cheers. This is water. Somebody asked me if that was a lemon sour. Do you speak Japanese? Oh, do you speak Vietnamese? That's my goal next year. I'm a little overwhelmed right now. All right. Mohawk language. What's that? If you wish to learn, Rocky Johnson said, if you wish to learn a language, for example, you must have the urge and passion to learn it. Yeah, which is why it always gets me when people ask, which language should I learn? What do you mean? What do you mean? For me, it's already painfully obvious, like what I want to learn, because I'm already interested in that country and I'm passionate about something about that country or its culture. I think the language is cool. I've never struggled with that question, or even what language will I learn next? People throw this out to me all the time. Hey, Oriental Pearl, Anming, learn this, learn that, learn this, learn Filipino, learn Hindi, learn whatever, Gaelic. I don't know. They put everything in there. To me, it's so obvious the next language I want to learn, Vietnamese. I'm interested in it. So passion and motivation, like you got to want it. If you're still at the point where you're like, which language should I learn? I don't know, man. Like, what do you mean? Don't you have an interest in a certain country? I know a lot of people learn languages too for their job or for school. They're forced to learn languages. That's why you gotta appreciate people who learn a language that they were not forced to learn, and especially people that learn a language where there's not a lot of resources. One YouTuber that I don't watch a lot of his videos, but I really appreciate that he's here is Kadzu Languages. And if anyone sees this and has seen his channel, tell him I appreciate his channel, because he's one of the Japanese YouTubers who has come in to the English-speaking sphere of language learning and shown his ability in multiple languages, and especially Spanish. You gotta appreciate a Japanese person that learns Spanish. I know, English ability too, but it's impressive. But you have to understand they're forced to learn English, or there's a lot of benefits to learning English for Japanese people in their jobs. It's not necessarily, it can be, but it's not necessarily a passion that they just have for the language. A lot of them are doing it or get good at it because it's for work. They feel they have to, they got to take the TOEIC test. But someone who freaking learns Spanish as a Japanese person is so impressive to me. And languages that you just know they wanted to, like they were passionate about that. So shout out to him. That's amazing. That's really awesome that like he wanted to. And you got to give the white guys some credit too. I know everyone wants to take a dump on the white guys right now, but or the comment always comes up, Asian country speaks English. Why is this guy who speaks Chinese, why is that impressive? Number one, it's not taught in our schools. Very few schools teach Chinese. Number two, we don't have a lot of resources. Number three, there's not a whole lot of job opportunities for Americans that speak Chinese. Not exactly something that's going to guarantee you a good job like it could guarantee a Chinese person speaking English. And you also have to appreciate that, they usually do it because they just love the country and are really interested in it. It's not about the money. It's not about the job opportunities. So give them some credit, man. Like English is forced upon a lot of people. Like Chinese wasn't forced upon me. Probably really interested in it. Just like the Japanese people I meet that speak French or Spanish. It's like, good for you, man. There's a whole freaking section in the Japanese bookstore here for English, like row after row after row. They got like 4 Spanish books. It's like small, or 4 French books. Or get into Russian and stuff. Like I heard a Japanese person speaking Russian. I'm like, that's amazing, man. You had to fight. That was an uphill battle. There's few teachers, few resources, few reasons to study Russian other than you just like it. So get off the white guys' backs too. If they learn kind of a language that people don't normally learn in America, give them some credit. It's not the same. It's not a fair comparison. Like, well, they speak English. Yeah, well, half the world speaks English and half the world is forced to speak English. There's tons of freaking English resources. Not downplaying people for learning English, like they get good at it. But if you want to learn freaking Vietnamese as an American, man, you just love Vietnam. It's just, that's all passion. That's pure passion. You ain't gonna get any extra money or any extra jobs. Unlikely to for doing that. It's just passion. All right, Mobek, who's a Spanish speaker, welcome from Argentina. I started Japanese at 33. In 3 years, I'm already at N2 level. Reviewed all my Joyo kanji, so like common kanji, and have conversations with Japanese without problems. Kids have time, encouraged 24/7. Yeah, praised by it, done, cope, learn. Yes, Mobek is serious about that too. He's made incredible progress. This guy is like, he's the real deal right here. And I'm proud of you. Good job, man. You keep going. And as I said earlier, usually people who have already gotten fluent in a foreign language, like Mobek, he's a Spanish speaker who speaks amazing English. It gives him an advantage with other languages, so he knows what goes into it. A lot of Europeans as well, they know foreign languages. So if they've already been successful with one or two foreign languages, learning another on top of that, they have a much higher chance of succeeding because they kind of know the drill. But hey, if this is your first foreign language and you're starting from nothing like I was, and you're already an adult, it's not hopeless because I did it. And I came from a very monolingual family. Hey, it would have been nice. I wish that I had a family that spoke Spanish too, but I love my parents anyway. So I didn't have any advantages. But I'm envious of people that did, because I wish I knew Spanish. Alex said, remember Lao Shu 5500? Yeah. I mean, how could you not? He was big name here in the language learning side of YouTube, who unfortunately passed away tragically at the age of 39 from, I believe it was a heart attack. Yeah. Really sudden too. That came out of nowhere. That was like 2021. Oh, wow. It's already been 4 years. It was around March when he passed away. So it's like the 1-year anniversary. I'm sorry. It's the 4-year anniversary. Holy crap. It's a 4-year anniversary. Wow. He's been gone for a long time. I can't even believe that. All right. Lupsang Lama said, wow, in 2 and 3 years, very impressive. Got to work harder. And he has a full-time job too and a wife. Like, again, you guys, it's possible. It's doable. This guy's on fire too. He's just like grinding every day, like grinding. But and the most important thing is like Mobeck and me too. Like if you miss a day, I didn't study today. I'm sorry. I was busy. I had friends over, had this live stream. I didn't study today. Get back on it tomorrow. Get back on the horse. A lot of people, when they miss the routine or they don't go to the gym, they just totally fall off. They're like, well, I missed it. I might as well. They don't. The biggest thing is like, all right, I missed a few days, or I even missed a week. Go back to it. Go back to the routine. So, you know, you gotta understand that life gets in the way sometimes, but when it does, and that's over, then go back to what you were doing, even if you fell off the horse a little bit. Peter said, we learn at school. Americans, we learn that at school. Americans don't. What do they learn? How is your Korean coming along? Gmo asked. I got into that earlier. I said I did an experiment. So many YouTubers are talking about, even in the podcast I listen to, they interview people in random freaking languages in Korean. They're interviewing people in Korean, this DD podcast I listen to, and all of a sudden they get on, yes, just keep listening. It's called the immersion approach. No, that's not immersion. That's just listening to podcasts and reading books. That's not full immersion. That's not the linguistic definition of full immersion. Okay. But anyway, so, you know, I actually did that for 6 months and it ended horribly. Not horribly, but I did not go to that school for 6 months. I didn't see my tutor for 6 months. I just studied at home. I was like, I did 2 years of this. I usually only do 2 years at this school and then I go on my own. But I did 2 years at this school when I was like living in China. I've never lived in Korea. So that's a different kind of, I went to the school way more hours in China. But anyway, 6 months, I just listened to podcasts and I did good. Like I did a lot, at least an hour a day consistently of Korean. Listening to podcasts, I listen to so much. I'm running out of material, going to like really obscure channels, podcasts, movies, doing my vocab, just everything for about 6 months. 2 weeks ago, there was a party with Koreans there, and I tried to talk to them, and I blew it so bad. I got so rusty in 6 months. And I'm going back to the school. That experiment did not end well. I'm not saying that I lost a lot of words or anything. It's just my conversation got so rusty. It is clearly not enough to just only listen to material. Yeah, my listening ability got better. I'm able to watch shows that I couldn't 6 months ago and understand a lot more. Did terrible things to my speaking ability. The best thing you can do is do both. Have both working for you. You have no need to do this experiment. I've already done it for you. And if there's 6 months of that, I can tell you it ain't doing anything for your speaking skills. That'll get really rusty. So I need at least the 2 hours of tutoring a week, even if I'm just talking to her. And speaking is so important. Speaking is so important. I will still be doing more listening, podcasts, whatever, at home than the speaking, but I can't not do the speaking. That's obvious. I was really embarrassed at that party. Like, what the heck? Why can't I speak suddenly? Oh yeah, I haven't spoke much in 6 months. That's not good. Like I've been doing so much with Korean. Oh, but I didn't speak for months. That can't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm gonna tell you, after 6 months of that experiment, you gotta speak. Don't make that mistake. How did you meet your Japanese husband? Hello Talk. Hey, Hello Talk's a great way to get some speaking in. I would have liked to meet people through Hello Talk here in Japan that are Korean. So I didn't have that 6 months of basically not speaking. But I did it a few times, and these Korean people living here are so freaking good at Japanese. We ended up just speaking Japanese most of the time, and it happened again and again. And I'm like, all right, at this point, all right, I just will have to go back to the school because I'm not getting Korean practice like I wanted. They're so good at Japanese here. The Koreans that live here, they're freaking good. Really good. They pick it up so fast. But makes sense, right? Because Korean and Japanese have a lot of the same structure, same pronunciations and vocab. Okay. Moving to Michigan in 2 weeks. Hey, Haneda, moving to Michigan. Quick advice. What Michigan accent slang should I know? I did a video about that. It was a short. A lot of you guys don't see my shorts. I try to capitalize on both shorts and long form. I think that's the sweet spot when you can do both well and they're both popular. Shorts grow the channel with subscribers, and long form, yeah, then long form makes the money basically, but doesn't always grow the channel that well. And I did a video about the Michigan accent, and I'd say some of the funniest things that we use in Michigan are pop. We call soda pop, just pop. Everything is pop. Doesn't matter if it's Coca-Cola, Sprite, Fanta. It's all called pop. That's a Michigan thing, or Midwestern at least. All right, there's one. Michigan word, pop. Pop means soda pop. Got that? Now you know. We don't call, it's going to sound funny if you say soda. Give me a soda. We're going to say, where are you from? California? Maxium said, is Mandarin still your best language you've learned? I would have said that a few years ago. Now Japanese and Mandarin are pretty equal. I'd say I've made a lot of effort to bridge the gap in the last few years, especially since getting married, because I now have access 24/7 to a native speaker, Teacher Tommy, and I copy him a lot. Like I'm a copycat. I'm a parrot, and I started to sound a lot more boyish in my Japanese too, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, I've bridged the gap a lot. The only thing I'd say that's probably still better in my Mandarin is the accent. I have a more native sounding accent in Mandarin than I do in Japanese, but hey, it's even that bridge is getting closer. It's closing the gap as well. Maybe I just need a few more years or even less, and I will not even know the difference. But reading, writing, listening, speaking are pretty much on the same level. I don't have any more trouble listening or talking to a Japanese person expressing myself than I would in Mandarin. However, like I said, I think I have a better accent in Mandarin. Maybe, I wonder why. Maybe, I don't wonder why. I learned that language when I was younger than when I started Japanese. And I did a lot of like intensive accent training with Chinese that I didn't get to do in Japanese. I did it with my teacher, actually. I told her to be merciless, point out every single thing, every intonation mistake, everything. And she was. And then I did a lot of scripting where I'd read scripts out loud for presentations and just for practice in Mandarin almost daily. And I was brutal on myself. I'm like, start over from the top. That wasn't perfect. Do it perfectly. It was kind of harsh. I didn't quite go to that extreme with Japanese, but the difference is not that crazy. Jay in the box said, I'm learning Thai, and I've realized that the more I speak Thai with natives, the better my Thai accent is getting. Yeah, well, you're probably subconsciously copying them. And I noticed that with Tommy. That's why my Japanese is sounding more and more boyish. All right, you'd have to have a pretty good grasp on Japanese to pick up on that. I don't know, in my recent videos, I haven't really talked much in Japanese. They were more documentaries, but when I talk in real life, a lot of my Japanese friends pick up on the boyish words that I use. Even things I didn't know sounded boyish, but the funny thing is, if you marry a Japanese woman, your Japanese will probably sound a little feminine. If you marry a Japanese man, they're probably going to rub off on you, and your Japanese is going to sound a little masculine. And that goes for the same as if your Japanese teacher is a woman, you're probably going to sound a little feminine. because you're going to be copying your teacher, right? So keep that in mind. I say like majde. I say majde, or irane. It's a lot of boyish words. Iranai, like irane. それひどいな。それひで、それひで、ひで. Like, I can't even say it with a straight face because it sounds like such a Saitama, like Yankee kind of accent. Hide na, hide. Women don't talk like that. They don't talk like that. Most men don't. Yeah, Tommy talks like that. He's funny. He's kind of being ironic, but it rubs off. And I definitely say majde way more than Japanese women would ever say majde. Majde is the boyish word for like honto? Honto ni? Honto desu ka? Majde? そうなんだ? そうなの? Majde? Super boyish. So put that in your treasure chest. Put that in your toolbox. Why did you avoid my question in Mandarin? I was looking at the camera. What is your question in Mandarin? Do I have to go like back 1,000 years? Where's your question? Right? Copy it again. Put it in there. I even put the chat on slow mode where you can only write like one comment every 2 minutes because I can't keep up. I don't see your question. I went back 2 minutes. Can't see your question. Write it again. Are you interested in learning German? Nah, I'm not. I think Vietnamese is going to be it for me. Do you realize I'm fluent in, well, including English. Okay, fluent in 4 languages: Chinese, English, Japanese, Korean. Chinese, Mandarin, Chinese, English, Japanese, Korean. Korean being the weakest, but I still consider myself fluent. It's now been 3 years. I know I haven't put much on YouTube, but coming soon. And then I just added Cantonese last year. That's 5 freaking languages. How much time do you think I have? And then I spend most of my day just maintaining these languages. It's like my life now, 100 hours a month. And I don't see that ever ending. At least before I could say, all right, I just want to get good at Mandarin, then I'm done. All right, I just want to get good at Japanese, then I'm done. Then I start YouTube. I'm like, no, I should add Korean. Now we're getting this endless list, and I don't want to spend more. Let's go deeper into the language, and I'll stop at 5. That's going to be it for me. 5. Mandarin, Cantonese, Japanese, Korean, English, and English and Vietnamese. I forgot I speak English. I do speak that. I speak Michigander. Michigander is a language. Dave B, welcome to the Japanese lesson series. I apologize to everyone who is a member of that. I need to update that. I haven't done a video in about 3 weeks, but there's a lot of material there. Like, I put a lot on there before I announced it. So new videos coming soon, though. Tommy's going to make them. All right, whoever asked for the Chinese question, I don't see your question reposted. So why are you avoiding me? Oh, I know this. All right, Mobex said, saludos desde Argentina. How is that? Greetings from Argentina. Believe it or not, folks, I embarrassingly have studied a lot of Spanish as a child, and I don't speak Spanish. At one point, I studied more years of Spanish than I did of Chinese, and so it's like, what? Like, why is my Chinese so developed and I don't speak anything of Spanish, but I did it for 5 years? Who said that? Five freaking years. All right, folks, get your last questions in here because it is getting quite late. Unless you want to drop a super chat and convince me to stay up later, I do have things I got to do tomorrow. So last chance, ask some questions. If you do drop a super chat, maybe you can convince me to stay a little longer, but it's going to be a hard sell. Because if you notice, we're on hour 3 and I didn't even use the bathroom once. Gosh. That's called the Japanese art of gaman. Gaman shitemasu. Gaman shiteru. Gaman wakaru? Gaman という言葉聞いたことありますか? Gaman よく使うね。日本でよく聞く。日本文化なんだよ。日本文化。我慢する。 まあ、ここまで聞き取れるなら、絶対我慢がわかるけど、我慢はどういう意味 If you understood what I just said in Japanese, then you certainly know the word 我慢する. But for those of you who didn't understand, 我慢 is like to put up with something or just toughen it out, toughen up and put up with it. I didn't use I've been sitting here for 3 hours. I didn't use the bathroom, so I'm gonna say the word gaman. Gaman shitemasu. Gaman shitemasu. All right, I'm gonna write that in the chat so you know it. That's a wonderful and common word in Japanese. Gaman suru or gaman shimasu. Gaman. Gaman. All right, here's the hiragana for those of you who don't like kanji. Gaman suru. I am being very Japanese. Haven't even left this seat for 3 hours just to give you the best experience possible. And I know a lot of you watch this on like this second day or third day or a year from now, 6 months from now. So I'm doing this for you, making it the best experience possible for you. Pearl, I'm around Hanyu. I'm at around Hanyu, HSK 2, 3 level. I feel a bit stuck with becoming more fluent. Do you have any good advice for breaking the ice, getting more confident, and talking more with people? All right, so HSK 2 and 3 are two completely different things from like speaking level. As you know, HSK doesn't test your speaking level, just like Japanese JLPT, Japanese proficiency test, does not test your speaking ability. So I trust that if you are a Westerner and you passed HSK 2 or 3, just beginner, but you know a decent amount of characters. So people that know that many characters that are Western usually have a higher speaking ability than their kanji ability. So you're probably getting becoming more fluent, as you said. Breaking the ice with conversation. Oh man, it's like I told one of my viewers who's in my Discord living in Hawaii. If you're in here, he's probably not in here. Live Fast. I think his screen name's Live Fast. Like I told him, having a language partner helps a lot. Going on Hello Talk, where I met Tommy, my husband, going on Hello Talk made all the difference for me with my Japanese, for sure. I didn't use Hello Talk when I learned Chinese because it didn't exist. That was 2012, 2013, didn't exist. But by the time I started learning Japanese, it was a thing. And that took me from like here to here. That made a massive difference. All right, honestly, when I learned Japanese at the school, I had a difficult time with, like daily language. We always used masuke. So masuke is like, arigatou gozaimasu, gaman shimasu, yoroshiku onegai shimasu. That mas form, right? The formal, はい、皆さん、こんにちは。今日ちょっと新しい文法を紹介したいと思います。どうでしょうか？はい、始めましょうか? That kind of mas form is all we used in the classroom. So every day the teacher would come in. はい、皆さん、おはようございます。はい、じゃあまず、立ってください。はい、じゃあ一人ずつ本を読んでください。はい、どうぞ。はい、お先にどうぞ。はい、こちらから。はい、どうぞ。And then this very formal language is all we use. So we talk to the teacher. はい、すみません、先生、ちょっと質問がありますけど、来ていいですか? That kind of language was so awkward when I went to meet people in real life. Especially the first meeting was fine. It's like, はい、はじめまして、私はアリサです。はい、アメリカから来ました。そうなんですか。アメリカのどこですか？アメリカのデトロイトというところから来たんですけど。はいはいはい。And then it worked great for your 自己紹介, your beginner, like self-introduction, first meeting, 初対面, your first meeting, 初対面ならこのマスケは普通です。実はマスケで話さなきゃ。That like just you have to use the mass form when you meet people for the first time, strangers. But then I'd start meeting these partners, like these language exchange partners, the second time, third time, fourth time, and they're like, ちょっとマスケやめてくれない？友達だからね、ちょっと丁寧すぎだと思うから、ちょっとマスケ抜きで話してくれない？ They would tell me to stop using the mass form, which was all my textbooks, all my interactions with the teacher in the classroom were all mass form. And I knew how I could understand the like regular form, but I couldn't use it. So they'd say, hey, can you stop using such formal conjugations with me? Like, we're friends, man. We're friends. Stop using that mass form Japanese, ohayo gozaimasu, or arigatou gozaimasu. Just say arigato. But actually, I didn't know how to use it at that point. So Hello Talk helped me so much with that in Japanese. And I learned it in school, but I didn't actually know it in real life. Like I went to use it, especially the past form, like 気づきませんでした。気がつかなかった。Though I didn't know how to say 気づきませんでした. It's like I didn't notice, or 気がつかなかった. I didn't notice informally, past tense. All this stuff that I like got tripped up on. I'm like, 昨日食べませんでした。昨日, how do you say 食べませんでした without the mas? Do you know? At that point, I didn't know. I'm like, 昨日食べれなかった. I wasn't able to eat. Or 食べましたか? 食べた? Things like that. Just talking to my partner, language exchange partner, I had to learn those one by one through many conversations. And it's something I couldn't get in the classroom because we never used that form. It's so important. I know all you guys are thinking, crap, that's all you're probably exposed to. And you might understand it like I could. I heard this on TV. I know how to, or in TV shows. Yeah, try to use it. You might not actually be able to recall it or conjugate it on your own. So, yeah, we tend to overestimate our ability. Like I can, tamego. I thought you said tamego. Tamego is like, I use tamero. It should be tamego. Tamego. You wrote, tamego. Tamego. I'm pretty sure it should be written like this. Anyway, you might think, I can understand it, so that means I can reproduce it myself. Think again. It's a lot harder to reproduce this yourself, and you'll find yourself tripping up. Is it 食べる? 食べられる? 食べられた? 食べられない? Tameguchi? Yeah, tameguchi. Tameguchi! There we go. Tameguchi, you're right, Mopik. It's tameguchi, like slang, sarangu go, or informal Japanese without, basically the opposite of keigo. What I was using is called keigo. That's what you're going to use with your superiors, people you don't really know, people outside your family, first meetings, things like that. People that are older than you, teachers, keigo. And the opposite of keigo is this tameguchi, or, regular speech. If you have a friend and you continue to use keigo, mas, ohayo gozaimasu, sumimasen, taihen o watase shimashita. Your friend's gonna think you don't like them. Your friend's gonna think you're not very good friends. That is that's actually rude in Japanese to talk to your friends like that. They're gonna think you are you're not their friend. You're trying to tell them, I want to keep space from you. Stay away from me. I'm going to put this wall up, this mas form. So be careful with that if you make Japanese friends. Very important. Anyway, folks, I hope you learned something today. We went through the myths of language learning, busting myths. This video was inspired more or less by another YouTuber I saw. This live stream was inspired by Language Jones, who's a YouTuber. He made a video not that long ago about language myths. It was most of the topics that I covered today. I couldn't agree with him more, and I wish more people would listen to that material. That video he did only get maybe 30,000 views at most. I don't remember. It didn't get over 100,000. It's like, but this is what people need to be hearing. And then the misinformation, the myths, those kinds of videos get millions and millions of views. It's like it's ironic, right? Nobody wants to hear the freaking truth. They don't want to hear the freaking truth. They want to hear what they want to hear. They want to hear what they wish to be true, which is not true, or what sounds good, or what's appeasing. And those are the kind of videos that are going to get a lot of views. I find this incredibly frustrating, by the way. I find it incredibly frustrating. It leads me to not want to, if you notice, I don't really make language learning videos. I do some live chats here and there, something, but I don't make language learning videos because of this issue. Because I know the things that are going to be rewarded by the algorithm are telling people that the things that they want to hear that they wish were true. It's like with fitness influencers as well. Telling people you can spot reduce fat, or telling people this is the workout you do to get abs, even though that's not how you get abs. Telling things to people that they think sounds logical. Oh yeah, that makes sense, that are completely unscientific. Language Jones, I feel he's very refreshing because he is a linguist. He's a PhD. He knows the literature. This is his area of expertise. He's not just bullshitting like most YouTubers who have no background in linguistics whatsoever and say these things with the utmost confidence, talking out their ass, and usually in the context of wanting to sell you something. I am so tired of that. I want to disassociate. I know nothing I make on language learning, like actual language learning, is going to be picked up in the algorithm. I feel like it's going to fall on deaf ears. It pisses me off, and I just don't make it. I just don't make it, you know? And that's the sad thing, that the voices that tell you the bullshit that people want to hear is, that sounds good. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Sounds good. They wish it to be true. Those are always going to be the videos that appeal to people, just like the fitness industry. And yeah, that's irritating. So I'm like, yeah, F it. I'm not going to make, why bother if it's just going to fall on deaf ears. But I do these live streams. So I hope that people watching this in reverse, not in reverse, sorry, it's 3 a.m. I hope people watching this another day on replay, that you get something from these. But this is probably, at this point, this is the best I want to do for actually giving language learning advice, tips, making language videos, because yeah, the live streams are fine. I just don't want to make full videos on it. I find that incredibly frustrating, and I have a lot of good advice that's just going to be tossed aside because it's not what people want to hear. They'd rather hear the bull crap. So let them, blinding the blind, or let them fall into the traps that these YouTubers set. Let them fall into the marketing schemes. Let them fall into the bullshit overpriced courses. They wouldn't listen to me anyway. So, I mean, they, what do I care if they get scammed? It's unfortunate, but it's like, yeah, they walk right into it. They absolutely walk right into it. It is a little, sometimes hard to feel, I don't know, it's not my problem, right? It's like you wanted the easy fix, you wanted the magic button or the snake oil, then there you go. That's what you bought, that's what you get. You wouldn't listen to anybody else. You like the flashy marketing. And yeah, that's why I find it frustrating. That's why you won't really see language learning videos on my channel, although I do language learning advice live streams. So we do these once a month. I hope you enjoy them. I could do more if you want to see them more frequently, but right now we're on like a once a month scale. I hope that it helps you. We cover a lot of stuff, and it's a chance to interact together. So Steven said, your videos about Japan, etc., are awesome. Thank you for all that you do. Well, I appreciate that so much, and I feel the love. I'm very glad that you guys are here, because I mean, look at how many people even show up for these live streams. Like, I'm not telling people exactly, the the sexiest, most mass appealing things. I'm just spitting the truth, and things I know to be, talking about things I know to be false, talking about things that I I know might not appeal to people, but I'm still going to say it. And if there's only 160 people watching, then so be it. But I mean, if you ever wonder why I don't make these into like actual videos, yeah, because it kind of irritates me that people would rather be fed lies, or they just fall into these marketing scams. They don't really want to get real advice. They just want to be told what they want to hear. And yeah, so that's maybe that could change one day. We'll see if I ever make like actual language learning videos about tips or methods or whatever. That I don't know. I don't know. Right now we're just gonna do the live stream. So I hope you're enjoying them. And if you want to see more, we could maybe move it up to 2 a month. But you got to be on board. Like 160 people in the chat ain't exactly on board. We got 1.35 million subscribers on this channel, and we can't pass 200 in the live streams. Like, this is why I only do it once a month. But for those of you that are here, I really appreciate it, and I hope you come back for the next one, because we'll be back in April for our monthly live stream. And for those of you watching on replay, like, come on, join the live. Like, it's a live. Y'all are watching these like weeks later, like it's a video or something. It's 3 hours long. It's gonna be hard to extract information. Like, the point is to be here live. But anyway, even if you're watching on replay, I appreciate that you watched it, because most viewers skip these as well. Blueprint Symphonic said, your videos are awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your kind words. Rocky Johnson, I love you too. What's your sign and what's your zodiac sign? Can't give that away. It's going to give away my birthday. Mike, thank you from Boulder, Colorado. Thank you very much. 3 a.m. my time, 3 a.m. my time too. And I will catch you later. Thank you so much, everyone. You have a good night, good day, wherever you are in the world. I'll see you in April, and look out for my new videos, because those are coming too. All right. Catch you later. Bye-bye. Woo, we're moving. Why are we moving? Okay, bye. See ya. I gotta go to bed. Oh, man.